Welcome back to the
Welcome back to the Rodcast.
We got a great show planned for
We'll get into the NCAA tournament discussion because
we got some good news, and I guess it's also a little sad news. We won't be with you tomorrow. We're going to be off for tomorrow for Good Friday leading up. So because of that, we're going to basically make today's show kind of the preview for our NCAA tournament conversation. So basically, we'll have a lot of tournament conversation on the show today. We'll give you our even though, of course, everybody has a bracket, we'll give you our predictions of who's going to make it to the Elite Eight, have that discussion with my man Patrick. Also, we're going to talk some NBA on the show. Two of the hottest teams in the NBA, maybe the two hottest teams in the Western Conference, are actually playing great basketball in the great state of Texas. So we'll talk about that too coming up here. We'll also get in some NFL discussion, of course. We're still buzzing from the Dak news from yesterday. There's some Dak discussion that we did not get into, so we'll get to that. I think it's part of that, the domino effect, the butterfly effect of that Dak news that Dak could indeed, and in most looks like most
it looks like it's going to happen at one point that Dak will play out the last year of his contract with the Dallas Cowboys in 2024. So we'll talk about the domino effect of that. We'll also get into some Texans discussion. Texans getting a little bit more love. There's also a conversation that the NCAA is having about changing the rules about what the analysts on the staff can do. We'll talk about that too. That's an interesting conversation that may end up helping Texas actually in a lot of ways. So we'll talk about that. We got a lot of different things on the show today. We got a Rangers report to get to as well because the Rangers will be starting their season officially this week, starting up tonight. Actually, is it tonight that the Rangers are starting up?
Tonight.
Oh yes,
right here on the horn. Right. 6 o'clock pregame.
Can't forget about that. That's why he's the real MVP. Always keeping me on track. Let's not waste any time introducing the man. He's the real MVP, one of the hardest working members of the ARN family. He's got a hustler spirit, period. I don't know what he's paid. I'm pretty sure that he's underpaid. Ain't no 401k for this hustler, and he is a hustle man of many talents. He is my friend, neighbor, and co-host. It's Patrick Davis, y'all. What's going on, Patrick? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, We're putting 2-day shows into one today, getting you ready. MLB opening day, NCAA tournament, NBA playoffs are getting close. Lots of good stuff, and then there's also spring football, and we'll probably talk about the Cowboys. I mean, it's sports radio. I feel like you're kind of obligated at this point.
It seems that way. Yeah, spring football. We got Behind the Burnt Orange Curtain. Thank you for reminding me about that. We'll go Behind the Burnt Orange Curtain next segment. We got two of those on the show today. So, yeah, we are jam-packed. We'll throw it all in there and try to get as much info to you as we can.
There you go. Let me introduce my co-host. He is a proud alumni of DBU. He's got more papers than Dunder Mifflin and watches more film than Siskel and Ebert. He is the new Rod father of Austin Sports Radio, Mr. Rod Babers.
All right, thank you, brother. I appreciate that intro as always. You can participate on with the show at on these text line 512-447-3776. You also can hit us up via Twitter. Patrick is at It's Patrick Davis in the Twitterverse. I'm at Rod Babers in the Twitterverse. We also have your Horn headlines coming up here momentarily, and after the Horn headlines, we'll dive into some NCAA tournament conversation. We'll have your big fat poll of the day coming up at 6:45. Also, there'll be a musically themed day of the week. That's always fun. You'll learn what that is coming up at 6:45 as well. And like I said, we'll get in some NFL discussion. I promise you, we'll talk some Cowboys and some Texans. But it's a lot of basketball conversation on the show today, considering the NCAA tournament about to get going again. The Texas women still alive, still dancing in the NCAA tournament. They'll face the Lady Zags coming up in their next round of the tournament. So we'll talk a little bit about that too. So let's get going. Let's not waste any time. My man Patrick's going to hit us up with the Horn headlines, get us informed and updated with all the top stories of the day.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. It was a busy night in the NBA with playoff seeding implications. The Rockets fought for an overtime win over the OKC Thunder, 132-126, to push their win streak to 10 and keep pressure on the Warriors for the 10 spots. Jalen Green had another good scoring night, putting up 37 points, and rookie Amin Thompson added 25 points and 15 rebounds. The Warriors overcame an early ejection of Draymond Green to beat the Magic 101-93 and maintain their one-game lead over the Rockets. The LA Clippers edge the 76ers 108-107 with a late defensive stop to keep a 2-game lead over the Mavs for the 4 seed. Elsewhere in the NBA, the Spurs won their second straight, topping the Jazz 118-104. to 111 behind Devin Vassell's 31 points. College basketball, the round of 16 kicks off tonight in the NCAA tournament with 4 games, including 1 seeds UConn and North Carolina in action against San Diego State and Alabama. Other favorites, Arizona will take on Clemson, and Big 12 champions Iowa State face off against Illinois. Texas baseball and softball start their weekend series tonight, allowing for Easter Sunday off. Longhorns baseball will take on number 23 Kansas State in Manhattan with LeBaron Johnson Jr., Ace Whitehead, and Max Grubbs, your projected starters, while Texas softball heads to Stillwater to take on number 8 Oklahoma State. Texas has had poor luck in Stillwater recently with their last regular season win in March of 2019. And finally, today marks opening day for the MLB season with games kicking off at 2 p.m. and running till late tonight. The Astros begin their season against the Yankees in Houston at 3:10 today, and the reigning World Series champion Rangers start off against the Cubs in Arlington at 6:35. That game can be heard with the pregame starting at 6 p.m. right here on the Horn. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. Yeah, I'm still debating whether I can give the Ghost Rose. I had a bet with Ty about the Astros and the Rangers, and obviously I lost the bet from last season. And part of the bet was that I couldn't say Ghost Rose anymore for, like, I believe this entire offseason. I have to wait till next season, I believe.
Oh, so you have to wait until like 3 o'clock today.
This whole I think this whole season I can't say it. I believe that's
crazy.
Yeah,
that was a crazy bet, Rod.
Yeah. So I lost.
What was
that
he?
bet.
What is he going to give up for that?
But I think he was supposed to like shave his beard or something.
That's not fair. He can grow back that beard in like 3 days.
But I gotta go see if the bet still applies, actually, because the truth is that was, different show, different time.
Yeah,
we got a new show, new era. So I gotta see if the bet still applies. But
we just gotta figure out what time Ty wakes up, and then we can do it then.
We could. No, we're gonna bring Ty on because Ty's gonna become a part of the show. We're gonna start bringing Ty on more and more because we got to get Ty's expertise and some of his hot takes, but also some of his gambling and betting advice, I should say, as well.
And believe me, and he knows his Rangers too, so he'll be able to come in and talk some Rangers as well.
That is for sure. He does. He's proud of his Rangers, no question. All right, so we'll talk some Rangers. Of course, we got a Rangers report coming up in the 9 o'clock. I know you Rangers fans are really excited. And of course, you find your Rangers baseball right here on the Horn. But let's talk a little NCAA tournament. Forget about the bracket. All right, we're done with your bracket conversation. Don't give me what you got in your bracket. Just give me now with new information. What you believe is going to happen in the NCAA tournament now. You got the Sweet 16 starting up tonight, as you mentioned in your Horn headlines. It's crazy because you got all 1 and all your 2 seeds advanced. This is, I want to say, and I saw the stat here about 1s and 2 seeds. This is only the 5th time since the NCAA tournament expanded to 64 teams in 85 that all 4 1 seeds and all 4 2 seeds made the Sweet 16. And when you're looking at it, and by the way, just to give you those other 4 times, it was 89, 95, 09, and 2019. And a number 1 seed won the championship in 3 of those 4 years. So the number 1 seed did advance and won the whole damn thing in 3 of those 4 years. But when you look at the matchups, it does seem easy to just pick the 1 and 2 seeds to advance. But we know that's not going to happen because it's madness. We know it's not. There's no way all the 1 and all the 2 seeds are going to. It's not going to. Statistically, the odds, it's just not going to happen. So, which one of those 1 seeds and which one of the 2 seeds is most likely to go down? Because I'm thinking that one of the 1 seeds and one of the 2 seeds will go down. Maybe one. It's definitely going to be one of those guys. It's not all the 1 seeds and all the 2 seeds are advancing to the Elite 8. It's not going to happen. So, first of all, give me your top choice for which one goes down.
So I'll say tonight.
Which one
tonight seems pretty chalky. Illinois has a decent shot against Iowa State tonight, but that's really the only upset that I would call up front. Tomorrow night, though, we know Marquette has issues. We know Shaka's had issues in the tournament. NC State is one of the hottest teams in college basketball right now. I still think Shaka and Marquette should be able to win that game, but that one's to watch. Purdue's playing really good basketball. Gonzaga's good. I like that matchup as well. We'll say Purdue is probably going to win that game. And then Duke versus Houston, I think, is very much primed for an upset. I like this Houston team, but they're beat up right now. They're very much beat up. And then I also have Creighton beating Tennessee. I just don't like Rick Barnes' teams when it comes to March.
Yeah. Yeah, Rick Barnes teams, especially deep in March too. There are a lot of different factoids and stats working against that pick. It's yeah, man. I guess honestly, we start looking at it. I think the Iowa State one is interesting, but Iowa State actually it's weird because I was looking at a just some of the prep about this game, and Iowa State was unranked in the preseason AP poll.
Yeah.
And not one of the 36 top 2 seeds that started the season unranked in the AP poll, but finished the season in the top 10, went on to make the Final Four. If you look at Iowa State, they are actually kind of the team that, considering of this group, that may have climbed the farthest. To come from unranked to be a number 2 seed, and they're battle tested because they came through the Big 12. I'm maybe that's the one. And I said, I know I just gave the stat actually that kind of it had disputes actually that pick because Iowa State starting unranked. They're not going to make the Final Four, but I do believe they can advance to the Elite Eight. So I'll pick them to have the most likely upset of those. And they're at 2 seats. I don't even know if you consider it a real upset. But of the 1s and the 2s to end up advancing, I think Illinois is that team. I'll say that they're the 1 seed that I say can most likely get upset.
Yeah, and I mean the reality is too, and I apologize, they're testing fire alarms in the building right now if you can hear that. But if you can, the problem with Iowa State, the problem with Houston as 2 teams that are in there is they don't necessarily have the star player on that team. They're very much teams, which works really well in the Big 12, which is a really good conference. They have 5-6 guys that can go out there. But they're teams where if you look at what Terrence Shannon can do, Terrence Shannon Jr. can do at Illinois, when you look at some of the star players that are on these other teams that they're going to be going up against, where Duke has Filipowski, who's going to be a top player, is going to be a top pick in the draft. There's just certain players that can step up in March Madness that tend to be next level players that advance teams to the Final Four. It's those kind of efforts. And I don't know if either Houston or Iowa State has that guy. So they can come in if they play a good team game. Houston has to stay out of foul trouble. That's the reason the Aggies were able to come back on them, is they were injured and then had foul trouble. But if they're able to stay out of foul trouble, they can handle Duke. Duke's not a great team this season, but it's just you always worry about, can somebody have a transcendent performance? That's, again, why you look at an NC State and what they've been doing. They've had players have transcendent performances in the last couple of weeks. And Tennessee, Dalton Knecht didn't have a good game against Texas. Can Creighton hold him off again and not let them go and let Creighton have a big game? It's all about making sure that no player for the other team has the big game, and then that's how you get upsets. North Carolina has too many really good name players where I don't see them. Purdue has Zach Edey, which until you get into these rounds, it depends on how the refs start calling it. Because Zach Edey, one of the things you'll see with him is they don't know how to call him when you get to the tournament. And then eventually they start to just let them foul him a little bit more and foul him a little bit more. And so this weekend, you'll see them getting away with more on him. And next weekend, it'll be even worse if they advance to the Final Four in the championship game. That he'll be getting roughed up pretty hard and they won't be calling as many fouls.
Yeah. No, it's interesting because, like I said, you rarely see all the 1 seeds and the 2 seeds advance like this. It looks like it could be pretty chalky in terms of the Elite Eight. The Elite Eight looks like it will be very, very chalky. I see maybe 2 upsets. It is the madness. I think you'll get 2 upsets. The Creighton Tennessee one is interesting because of the Tennessee style of play. Tennessee just wants to slow it down. If, like you said, if Creighton can get hot. They can get hot from outside and they can score some points against Tennessee. And, that's hard to do because Tennessee's defense is elite. Tennessee, they play some ugly basketball, as we saw against Texas. I could see that potentially as another upset. So one thing we do know, the madness will prevail. Not all of those higher seeded teams are going to advance. So very interesting. We'll get into a little bit of the ladies also for the Lady Longhorns for Texas. They'll be facing the Lady Zags in the next round of the tournament. And I believe, I haven't looked at the line, I think they are a heavy favorite against the Lady Zags.
Yeah, it is. The big question is, it is a road game pretty much for Texas. I'm sure Texas fans are going to try and travel well for it. But it is much, much closer to Gonzaga.
Yeah.
Texas is a 5.5-point favorite in that game against Gonzaga.
Yeah. And the Zags fans they don't really have to travel because it's in the it's in the Pacific Northwest there, but they'll travel anyway. So you can expect them to basically pack that place. Longhorn fans will have a presence, but it'll definitely be a Zag heavy crowd.
It'll be a Zag heavy crowd, and it is a late night for the Longhorns because it is a 9 p.m. start here for that game as well. So a lot of things kind of stacking up against them, but they have had odds stacked against them all year long, and they've kept winning. So I don't know if a couple more odds, we talk about that mental toughness and being able to use things to get that mental edge. Texas has plenty of them to go into this game with.
Very true. And Vic Schaefer, you'll make sure that guy's a master motivator.
Yeah.
We know how he is. He's a master motivator, along with being a damn good coach. But he'll have the ladies ready to play. We know that. They'll be ready to play for the moment, but it will be it'll be a raucous environment because the Zags, as you pointed out, they'll basically kind of make it a home environment for them. So the Longhorns will be represented in the tournament, just not on the men's side, of course, but the ladies are a 1 seed. So big things are expected from that group, even though, man, they've been through a lot this season and really shown a lot of fortitude. So the Longhorn fans are really proud of that those ladies this season. All right, we'll come back. We'll talk more about the NCAA tournament. I want to talk some NBA since we're talking hoops. I want to make the transitions pretty easy for my man Patrick. I know he watches a ton of NBA. The two hottest teams in the Western Conference right now are probably the Mavs and the Rockets. The Lakers, I believe, are also a team that's won, I think, like 5 in a row. But the Mavs have won 5 games in a row. The Rockets have won 10 games in a row. Now the Rockets are battling for like the 10 seed, so trying to get the play in. So it's not really anything that I think is going to really affect the championship, kind of the championship path for anybody in the West. They're just a really good, fun story to talk about. And I'm from H-Town, so I'm a Rockets fan. But the Mavs are the team that actually can make some noise. And there are a lot of folks out there. We'll play some sound later of Brian Windhorst. Tim Legler's now been on this Mavs bandwagon.
Yeah.
I've been on it for him a while, but I've been on it from the Luka standpoint because Luka, I still believe, is leading the NBA in points per game. I think he's 3rd in assists, somewhere around there. But anyway, I've been trying to lead the Luka MVP conversation. He can't be an MVP unless the Mavs start winning. But in the last 10 games, the Mavs have been pretty damn hot. They went 9-1 in their last 10 games. They ranked 2nd in defensive rating during that time period, in that stretch. 17-6 in their last 23 regular season games. In that time span, they're tied for 3rd in offensive rating. They're top 10 in defensive rating in that time span. I think they're 7th. Overall net rating, they're top 5 overall net rating in that time span. Like I said, if right now it looks like the Mavs have figured something out. They made some crucial trades. The trade deadline, they have, I think, the guy that should be the MVP of the league in Luka, and they got another creator and a closer in Kyrie, one of the best in the league. Everybody should be afraid of the Mavs. Depending on where they end up in the seeding, they can make a lot of noise come playoff time.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And first of all, I'll say for the Rockets, the good part about the Rockets is Ime set a goal at the beginning of the season to be a play-in team, and some people thought that was a little bit of lofty aspirations, but they're right in that conversation right now, which means they're on schedule, and that's what you want to see for a team that's building like that, who's been off schedule for a very long time. And so there is good things to look at when you're watching this Rockets team. But back to the Mavs. When we look at what this team was, they made those trades at the trade deadline, and we was really leveraging a lot more of your future if you're the Mavericks. But they needed something. Daniel Gafford has come in to be a really good defender, and although he's not able to spread the floor, his pick and roll game with Luka Doncic, he knows how to play that pick and roll game really, really well, and he rolls to the basket. And Luka's one of those guys who can make a pass in pretty much any situation. So if they try and double onto Luka, he just throws the ball down to Gafford, and he gets an easy dunk over and over and over again, which means they can't double off of Gafford to Luka anymore, which they were doing off of Lively, which they were doing off of Klebo, which they were doing off of a bunch of other guys. Gafford has kind of taken that away. And so it means you can't double Luka, which means he can now do whatever he wants. because if you single cover him 10 feet from the basket, he's either going to find an open 3-point shooter or he's going to score 2 points. And so that's been an aspect that's coming up. He's started to do it with Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving, another one of those players that can do that. Then I talk about Derrick Jones Jr. and putting in a defensive player into that slot who's been hitting good enough 3-point percentage in the second half of the season to be a 3-and-D guy, but he's got that length and he can be a defender. So you've got Gafford and Jones that can play defense. PJ Washington is long, so he's not the best defender, but he's long. He can get in people's faces. He can put his hands up, and then he's been hitting his threes. If he scores his threes, he gets open. He's a guy that they're going to double off of a lot. He can get those shots up. You bring in Dante Exum coming back off of injury. His length and defense has been big for them as well. There's basically what Jason Kidd wanted to build around the defense. He started to find the guys to do that. They're getting healthy at the right time of the season as well.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, the defense that really, I mean, they could score. They got Kyrie, they got Luka. The scoring wasn't the issue. It's never been the issue for them. But defense was the issue in their defensive identity. And Jason Kidd, he doubled down on it. I mean, he's and to I think a lot of Mavs fans were frustrated with Jason Kidd, but it looks like right now they're trending in the right direction, and the moves they made have given them a defensive identity of sorts. And man, they're a dangerous team. I think now they are. You said they're the 6th seed, or
they're the 6th seed right now. They're 2 games back of the 4. They're 1 game back of the 5. So the Pelicans are at 5. They're 1 game back there. They're 2 games back of the Clippers at the 4. The Clippers have had some struggles as of late. They got a win last night over Philadelphia, but it was close. And that's a Philadelphia team without Joel Embiid. All the hot shooting and everything that's been coming from James Harden is not there. Russell Westbrook, as much as it's crazy to say, has been a big part of that bench for the Clippers, and he's been out as well. Yeah. So when you put all that together, they don't have a ton of depth because they are so built around those star players and Paul George and Kawhi Leonard and James Harden and Russell Westbrook that they don't really have a lot of other guys on that team who can step up in the roles. So they're still playing okay basketball, but if Dallas hits at that right time, the other good part for Dallas is they're pretty much through the hardest part of their schedule. They play the Kings again tonight. They can get some more separation on the Kings, who they just passed to get to that 6th seed, get some more separation from them, stay out of that play-in. You don't want to be in the play-in. You want to get rest. So if they can get some more separation there, between 4 and 6, you'd love to be 4. It means home court advantage, but in all reality, 5 or 6 is not going to kill you either. You just don't want to be in that play-in for Dallas. But they back into their schedule these last couple of weeks. This is where, I looked at it at the All-Star break, and you said, man, if they can be in the mix after the hard part and then go into that last 10 games or so of the season, it's a much easier 10 games than they'd been playing. They have a real shot to get into that 4 spot and have home court advantage. And then, then it's really about, okay, if you win that first series and you end up playing the Nuggets, who are the 1 seed right now, do you got a shot? Now, I think if you play Oklahoma City, if Oklahoma City is able to take over that 1 seed, then you have a shot against Oklahoma City. I don't know if you can beat the Nuggets. The Nuggets are just really, really good.
They're just too good.
They're your defending champs. Are really good. It's going to be a really hard series because they do play defense well as well. And, if you play really good defense against Luka, you can get him to shoot a low percentage. He shoots a low percentage. The defense drops. Everything goes out. If you're shooting 30, if the Mavs shoot 30% from the field, and Luka and Kyrie are both shooting 30% or 25%, it means there's so many more fast breaks. It means Luka and Kyrie are not running back on fast breaks either. And that's a way that you can get behind and get a lead early against this Mavs team. But as long as those 2 guys are scoring, that there's a Mavs team that it is. You talk about 2 of the best undefendable players in the NBA are on one team.
Yeah, they're indefensible when in certain situations Luka is indefensible. Matter of fact, that we'll play some audio later on of kind of LeBron and LeBron actually talking about it. And it was really interesting conversation they were having on his new podcast that he has. But anyway, you pointed out why the Mavs are so dangerous. Man, they got 2 guys that can either be a closer or a creator.
Yeah,
they got 2 of those guys, so that makes them, from a standpoint, indefensible because you just don't have enough elite defenders. Nobody really does to defend both of those guys. And now they're playing some defense. So scoring's not an issue, but the fact that now they can play some defense means that the Mavs are They're a dangerous team.
They're
They are a
dangerous,
dangerous group.
but this is what the Mavs issue has been in the playoffs the last few years. And part of it's been defense, which they're fixing that. But it's, can you rely on players that are unreliable in the playoffs? Tim Hardaway Jr., PJ Washington, Derek Jones, can he hit his threes? Can Dante Exum hit his threes? Can Maxi Kleba hit his? Can those guys, when they double team Luka and he makes a great pass, and they double team Kyrie and he makes a great pass into the corner or out for a three, and if you can hit those, if those guys are consistent and play well in the playoffs, then this Mavs team has every ability to go make a run. But if those guys start missing shots, then it all starts to go downhill, because then you talk about games where we've seen with this team lose where Luka and Kyrie combine for 90 points and they lose because there's just not enough other things happening for the team.
No, you're right about that. I mean, that's why, I'm with you on that. The role players for them stepping up is going to be big, and because the usage rates for Luka are historically high.
Yeah.
That's going to be the case regardless, but he does get worn down if he doesn't have enough support, offensive support around him, guys stepping up, especially in the playoffs. You're playing against really good teams, really good defensive teams. Instead of what you see during the regular season. All right, good stuff from my man Patrick. Always doing a great job talking hoops. The Spurs, I know we didn't talk Spurs, but we can give Spurs shout outs in our what the facts, what the stats. I don't know how, once again, I'll say this. I don't know how they're going to justify giving the Defensive Player of the Year award to anybody else other than Wemby. Because now the stats are even, he's starting to separate from everybody when you start looking at blocks.
Yeah. He had 5 more last night, I think.
Oh man, it's freaky. How about this? So he had 5 blocks last night. This marks the 21st game of the season with 5 or more blocks for Wemby. He's tallied 5 or more blocks in basically a third of all of his 33% of his games this season. He's had at least 5 blocks. It's crazy, man. And I think he's got 217 on the season. Leads the NBA in total blocks through week 22. Come on, man. It's crazy. He's averaging 3.4 blocks per game. And nobody's even close. So I know it's not just about blocks. You Defensive Player of the Year. It's about more than just having blocks. But his block numbers.
It is, and there is a part of it too that you always want to say. We can get into this again in stats, but that when people are now kind of giving the if people had that height, they could do it. And you're like, there's a guy named Bol who's in the league right now who can't do that.
Not doing that
because he fouls all the time because he doesn't have the hand-eye coordination and the ability to know where to be in the right space, to reach out with his arm and not touch body and not do like all those other pieces that go into it where you're not hacking down on it. You know how to have the ball control and to do that. There's more to it. There's more skill in it than some people are giving him credit for. But and even if you take out, the numbers are just astronomically better than anybody else.
Yeah.
And at least in the blocks department.
According to NBA.com stats, like I said, it's not what the stats segment, but that's what I feel like when you start looking at Wemby stuff. It's just fascinating. For stat nerds. He's really in the analytical era. He's fun to follow. He becomes the first rookie to have 300 combined blocks and steals in a season since Shaq did it in 1992-93. Shaq had 346. I think Wemby's right at 300 or 301 or somewhere around there. So, I mean, honestly, the season's not over. How many games they got left in the regular season?
11 or 12, I think.
Okay. Well, he's got it. I don't know. I don't know if he.
I mean, if he averages 5, that's 50 more.
It's true. That's a great point. That's good. He's averaging damn near 3.5.
Yeah.
So the truth is, he will come close to it if he just gets it. If he stays with the average, yeah, man, he is phenomenal. So yeah, Spurs fans, I know you can't really. You're at the bottom of the Western Conference, so you can't talk about your team on a winning streak, making a run or anything. But you can just talk Wemby, and it'll bring a smile to your face. Just talking to Wemby. Hey, anytime you start getting sad about the season, you just convert the conversation to Wemby talk, and it makes you feel good. All right, we'll talk some Texas football. That makes a lot of our listeners feel good. We'll go behind the burnt orange curtain next segment. We'll talk about some Texas spring football nuggets. We also have some audio that we're going to hear from Quinn Ewers. He spoke to the media. So we're from Quinn Ewers talking about his maturity and development. Very interesting stuff from Quinn Ewers, the Texas starting quarterback. We'll hit all that more when we come back. This is the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers, coming right back on the horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. Yesterday, actually, we had our friend Charlie Wilson on, and he is the president, CEO, and general manager of Callahan's General Store during our At the Turn segment. That's 8:30 on Wednesday. Just say a little random shout out there, and shout out to pro golfer Omar Uresti, who also joins us. But getting back to it, when Charlie comes on, he always gives us some nice little tips about lawn care. Man, that is gold, folks. Trust me. If you are trying to have that plush, green, healthy looking yard, you want that yard of the month. That's what I'm trying to get. I want people to walk by the yard and look at it and give me compliments about the yard. All right, and be envious of my yard. I want one of those kinds of yards. And I was talking to my man Charlie about it, and he told me exactly what I need to do. Get on over to Callahan's General Store. That's what you need to do. They got everything you need for top-notch lawn care, folks. They have the pre-emergence that you need to initially kill all of the weeds, or at least most of the weeds. They got the barricade from the nitro foss. They also have the weed and feed that you're going to need after the pre-emergent. You put down the weed and feed. As a matter of fact, I just put mine down last week. Looking forward to going back home and seeing how nice the yard looks, and how few weeds there are, if there are any left, after I put down the weed and feed from Callahan's as well. They also have the Bermuda seed. I haven't done that yet. That's just to fill in all the patches that may have been damaged by too much sun damage, or the winter freezes, whatever it may be. And that's something else you can get at Callahan's. They got the soil, though, if you need that. They got all the amendments. They got the special fertilizers, everything that you need to make sure that your yard is that golf course condition. You can get it at Callahan's General Store. And don't forget about the seedlings that you need for all your vegetables. If you got that green thumb and you're starting to plant vegetables with spring upon us, they have all types of varieties of different things at Callahan's General Store. Your peppers, your tomatoes, your melons, the other plants that you to choose from. They also have trees. They got your fruit trees. They got your pecan trees there. They got everything there at Callahan's General Store to make sure your yard is looking top notch. Also, with Easter around the corner coming up, they got the baby chicks there. They got the ducklings there and the rabbits. So bring the kiddos out when you come to do your shopping at Callahan's General Store. They'll enjoy it as well. It could be a family affair right there, 501 Bastrop Highway between downtown and airport. Make it a Callahan's day. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. It is time to go behind the burnt orange curtain, talk some Texas spring football. There are a couple of practice notes from our good friends over at Owen Texas Football that I want to give you. Jerry Hamilton, Bobby Burton, CJ Vogel, and the crew. And also there's some audio from our friends over at K-View from Corey Mose and Tyler Feldman of Quinn Ewers speaking to the media that I also want to play in our behind the burnt orange curtain segment here. First, let's get to the practice notes. Here, Jerry Hamilton, I will give you all of them because you got to go over on Texas Football and go check out the great work they're doing, and you can get the comprehensive breakdown. But I'll give you a few nuggets here. They're saying that Amari Niblack is moving up in the rotation as expected at the tight end position. He started out, and honestly, I've heard that they like the young kid Jordan Washington too. That I don't know if they're going to play him early, but that he looks like he is going to be ahead of schedule. But Amari Niblack, this is a guy that runs like a wide receiver. He's bringing real speed. Longhorn fans know this because he had a explosive play against Texas when they played Bama in Tuscaloosa. But he runs like a wide receiver, and he's faster than JT Sanders. I'm trying to think the last time Texas had a tight end that was as fast as Amari Niblack. That's a great question, kind of ponder. Because he's going to bring some real next level speed. He could potentially open up the offense in an entirely different new way. Also, Jerry Hamilton here says Alex January is ahead of Sadir Mitchell in the rotation over the ball, which is pretty wild. That's good and bad. Like a lot of things from spring practice, right? You hear one phase of the game, it's like, oh man, your O-line looks like they're dominant. Well, that means that your D-line looks like they may be subpar, or they may be struggling a little bit in the spring. Well, hearing Alex January is ahead of Sadir Mitchell is good because he just got there. So it shows you that young player is mature beyond his years, ahead of schedule in his rate of development. But also shows you that Sadir Mitchell, at 372 pounds that he was at, Patrick, that that may have set him back more than we anticipated with the coaches if the young bucks already getting snaps ahead of him in the rotation over the ball.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, but it's a good learning lesson that you want to be able to see is you got to work harder in that time when we're not necessarily watching you and overseeing you, that you need to stay in the right shape, because if I see you huffing and puffing, we're going to pull you out. You need to work on your own world to be in good enough shape that you can stay in those games and stay in the drills.
I'm with you on that, though. I mean, I thought maybe that's the weight he was comfortable at, because we see that with Devondre Sweat. Because Devondre Sweat, we thought, oh man, he's gonna lose some weight for the combine. He's gonna lose some weight for the pro day. Nope, he actually gained a pound from the combine to the pro day, and weighed in at 367 pounds. He was 366, I believe, at the combine. So he's like, hey man, this is what I play. This is the weight I play at, and you guys are gonna have to accept that. He's just a massive human. And I thought Sadir Mitchell, maybe that's the route he was going, but obviously the coaches disagree if Alex January is already getting some snaps ahead of him. Nato Umeozulu is working at the first team left guard. I mean, we talked about there's a competition at the left guard position for Texas, and I think there will be throughout spring, but there are a lot of different guys that they're throwing in at that position. But right now, it looks like Neto, at least the last practice, Neto Umeozulu was getting first team left guard reps for them. This was a second straight practice, by the way. You noted that second straight practice that was going on. All right, so go over and check out On Texas Football. They're giving you nice nuggets from the Texas practice. You can go check that out on TexasFootball.com, or go check out the On Texas Football YouTube channel there. All right, let's get to some of this audio for Quinn Ewers, because Quinn Ewers is showing a lot of growth and maturity, and I think the answer that he gave about why he decided to return to school here during his media availability yesterday tells you a lot about the shift in his mindset as a prodigy and a player. Here's Quinn Ewers, starting the quarterback for Texas.
The main thing for me was just getting more experience. I had some people put together a pretty good chart on, obviously the more you play and the more experience you have, the better you end up playing and succeeding in the NFL. And I just wanted to put myself in a better spot to be able to succeed at a high level once I, hopefully get there. So just more experience, and then I feel like I've been rushing my entire life. So just take a year, slow it down, and not rush things. Skip my senior year, that went by fast. Was at Ohio State for a semester or so, that all went by fast also. So just take my time throughout the whole process, and enjoy being here, just being present and not looking too far forward.
What challenges did you have to go through personally to get to that headspace?
Yeah, it's hard because this is what you dream of. Since I was a kid, I always wanted to play in the NFL and succeed at a high level in the NFL. And to get to that point, obviously I think it was just better for me to just stay another year and just enjoy it.
All right, there you go. Luckily, he talked about how he's been essentially fast-tracked his entire life, skipping the senior year, sitting 1 year at Ohio State and transferring to Texas. That was all meant to keep him fast-tracked to head to the NFL. He's a guy that had aspirations to be the top quarterback taken, and be a guy that plays at the highest levels. And he, as a recruit coming out of high school, he did score as the highest rated quarterback in the history of modern recruiting. So you could understand those expectations. But I will say him having to come back to school, slow down the process of being fast-tracked, I do think it's given him a different perspective. And I know, man, Jerry Hamilton brought this up, and I thought it was interesting. It did kind of hurt him missing his senior year, not from maybe from a developmental perspective, but not really. I mean, he was advanced, so it's just like a young kid you consider a prodigy in school. You can skip them a grade. So say you skipped a grade, nothing wrong with that. But from a leadership perspective, because when you play at a place like South Lake Carroll, which the community, revolves around football, and football is such a part of the identity of the community, the quarterback essentially is the face of that program and becomes a community leader. And when you're a community leader, there are a lot of expectations about how you carry yourself and how you motivate others and hold others accountable. And that's not only with your team, but in your community. So he missed that senior season when he was supposed to be that community leader and supposed to be that guy also in the locker room that held his teammates accountable. That was a vocal leader that was thrust into that role, even though it was uncomfortable, and he had to develop his own leadership style. He didn't really get a chance to do that because he missed that year. So he's doing that now. He's learning that on the fly. He's learning how to cultivate his own leadership style now at Texas. And I think now he may be ready to be ready to take on that role as a vocal leader on the team at this point.
Yeah, and it's just, when you talk about kids growing up and maturity, when you skip a grade, you're going to be less mature than the other people in your grade. And, I think at the time it could have seemed like the best decision. Also, there was NIL implications where there was money involved in it too.
Yeah, I'm not saying it was bad, but
it's also that point of, well, if you want to go to the NFL after your sophomore, you want to go and after your third year, you want to be ready to go. Then you probably need that last year of high school to then be, you can't jump grades twice. It's hard to do that. It's really hard to jump 2 grades. And that's kind of what it felt like he was trying to do at a certain point. And this is saying, no, you can't jump twice. You're going to have to step back another year. And you're still a year ahead of everybody. You're just not 2 years ahead of everybody. And normally the people that are 2 years ahead of everybody are more physical freaks that are somebody that just has unbelievable athletic ability, where that will carry them over until the rest catches up. Quinn doesn't necessarily have that. He's got a lot of abilities and attributes that are great, but it's not like he can go run for 1,000 yards in the league tomorrow. And that's kind of the guys who tend to be able to, really, really fast track things.
Yeah, no, it's just, leadership. It's so many different qualities that make a great quarterback and that make a great leader, and everybody does it a different way. And it's a natural leadership position. I do think now he's ready for that. And last year he didn't have to be that because there were a lot of guys who are willing to be, those kind of main frontline leaders. This team is a team that's going to be led by Quinn Ewers. There's no doubt about it. It'll go where Quinn goes. And I think he recognizes that he has to take on a different style and a different role as the vocal one, the one that gets everybody, motivated. He's gonna, talk to people on the team. They want to talk to Quinn Ewers. He's got to be the guy that organizes all the workouts. He's gonna have to be the one that holds his teammates accountable, make sure that they're practicing to a standard, all of those things. So I think it's really interesting that you heard him say, he wants to be present, right? He's like, I want to be present. I want to make sure I'm present. And I think what he means by that is, when the people want my time, whether it be because he's a community leader now and that's fans and that's NIL stuff, or that's the coaches, because he's got to spend a lot of time with the coaches because of the game plan, him and Sark, they want to have that hive mind, or with the players in the locker room. I just got to be present because everybody's going to want a piece of him because he's the starting quarterback at Texas.
Yeah. And it's a hard thing to do, but that's part of it. When you're rushing constantly, it's hard to, step back and smell the roses and appreciate why you're there.
Yeah.
And maybe when you can appreciate why you're there, it make you change up a little bit of your work ethic and change up some things about how you talk to people, because it's not that I'm predestined to be here. No, I've worked really hard to get here, and you have too, and let's be friends and let's go to achieve our final goal. Then you guys are holding me back from this destiny that has been given to me, that I have been ready to go. It just changes what your mindset is when you can kind of just sit back and be a part of the team a bit more than be a part of your own destiny.
That's a great point. There was just kind of this preordained, fate for him that, I think now he's realizing, like, no, it doesn't have to happen that way. I'll still get to accomplish my dreams. It's just going to look a little bit different than he initially thought. But another reason he had to stay is because he still got something to work on physically.
Yep.
He still got some things he's got to work on. How he handles pressure in the pocket, feeling the pressure in the pocket, kind of the science, the science of being able to maneuver in the pocket for a quarterback, keep your eyes downfield, work through progressions, I think, but also his body. He's got to be more durable. He's got to make it through an entire football season. He had done that since he was a sophomore in high school. So he was asked about what he's done to increase his durability. I believe my man Joe Cook at Inside Texas threw this question out here. This audio is from Tyler Feldman over at KView. Here is what Quinn had to say about that.
Around 205, trying to get up to 210 right now. I think that just gaining good, and it's got to be good weight. It can't be, that mullet weight I had when I was back when I was like 220.
The mullet weight. So I guess he's like, that's kind of my dad bod phase. I had some bad weight on me. I had more weight, but it wasn't muscle mass. I think he's talking about now he wants more muscle. And as a quarterback, you want to pack it in the right places too. You don't want to pack it in places that are going to affect your mechanics and your throwing motion. You want to pack it in, like, hell, look at Patrick Mahomes. He decided he's going to pack it right here, like right here in the gut, right here in the love handles right there. And honestly, it's not a bad place for quarterbacks because that's all about, as long as your core is strong, you don't have to necessarily have the six.
No, you just wear the flak jacket. No one sees it. You're good.
Until they sent that video out from him in the locker room. But yeah, so for quarterbacks, it doesn't matter necessarily how it looks, as long as the weight is in the right place, and it is the good weight that he talks about. But yeah, he's got to make it through an entire season, Batch. That's a big part of it. He's got to do that. If he doesn't, then I think that'll also become a question mark when they're evaluating him. Like, hey man, durability. Why would you draft a quarterback that high to be your franchise quarterback? Can't play through 17 games if he can't play through a college football schedule without getting hurt.
Yeah, I mean, we know that's Michael Penix Jr. We know that's one of his things in the draft this year is how many injuries he had, and people are shying away from him. We know Lamar Jackson. People were not willing to pay him $200 million because they thought, well, he's never going to play a full season. And so those are Lamar Jackson's a mobile quarterback, but at the same point, Quinn Ewers, if he runs 3 times, he needs to be as a quarterback, you need to be at least a little bit mobile in today's game. And if every time he runs, he's going to go down, you've given the numbers of sack avoidance and how he takes too many sacks at points. That is something of, can you take a sack and then get right back up and throw a pass for 17 yards to pick up that first down after taking a sack? Or do you have to come out of the game and now it's a run play after you just came out because you got sacked and you've compounded a sack onto, now it's a 3 and out because you took sack. All of those pieces you want to see of just building up a little bit more ability to fight off. And then other than that too, you want to be able to avoid sacks, and putting on good weight and good muscle is how you start to break away from arm tackles and things in the pocket.
Yeah. That's how, you see Patrick Mahomes do it all the time. It's like, guy can't bring him down with an arm tackle or just, trying to swipe at his legs. He always finds a way to get out of those situations. No, it's good stuff there. All right, we'll come back. Next time we'll get into Quinn because he was asked to give, and we don't have the audio of this, but it was reported. He was asked to give a description of each receiver. Of the top receivers, and reluctantly he actually did give a description. So we'll get into that next time we go behind the Bernard's curtain. I thought it was very telling. All right, we'll come back. We'll get into the big fat poll of the day, also what the musically themed day is. So we'll get into all of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Coming right back on the horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. Let's talk about the city of Austin. Other than the traffic, we are all proud to call Austin home. It's a great city. The music's fantastic. The people are great. The culture's really good. We talk about the live music all the time here in Austin. We also talk about how great the city, how unique the city is, and it's unique because of the iconic landmarks around the city. And many of those iconic landmarks that we love so much were actually created and built by the skilled craftsmanship of Ironworkers Local Union 482, like the Pennybacker Bridge and DKR Stadium. So the folks over at Ironworkers Local 482 right now are working on another huge project to add to our community. And right now they need your help. They're hiring over 3,000 people for this big project right here in Central Texas, offering competitive wages, competitive benefits, and a pension plan. They even offer training for unskilled labor through their apprenticeship program. So if you're thinking about new, exciting employment opportunities, or you want a refreshing career change, or maybe you want a new challenge, or maybe you just need a new job, maybe you need a job. Hey, my friends over at Ironworkers Local 482 are hiring numerous positions, a lot of different opportunities over there. And like I said before, you don't even need the skills. If you're worried about whether you have the skills that'll translate, you don't have to worry about that. They will teach you the skills. That's how badly they want your support. So go over to ironworkers482.org to learn about all of these different positions. You can apply there as well. That's ironworkers482.org, ironworkers482.org.
Back here on the sport on the Rodcast on a Thursday morning, and it is a new theme Thursday. And since it's opening day, it's an easy one. Baseball is our theme for the day.
Oh yeah,
Just songs about baseball, and depending on what it is, we get a little skewed in that because there's not a ton of great songs about baseball. There's songs about teams. There's a lot of songs about teams which are questionable at points, but there's not a lot of just generic songs about baseball that aren't ballads. So many ballads about baseball.
there are ballads about baseball.
Yes, there's just this
Really?
because it's a love affair thing with baseball, and they talk about what it means.
Man.
And there's all these slow songs that I was going through and looking at songs about baseball, and there's all these slow songs that you're like, well, I can't play. There's not good intro music to listen to Bob Dylan pine about how baseball is beautiful. And so so we've got a few that it'll get interesting. We'll get interesting by the end of the show, but baseball is our new theme Thursday. It's also
Good
time
stuff.
for the big fat.
Challenge yourself, man.
You know what?
Yourself.
It's always
There
you have an idea, and then you're like, well, I got like 3 or 4 off the bat, and they're like, well, I need 3 more to fill out the show, and then finding those last 3 can be difficult at points on some of these. But it does bring us to the big fat poll of the day, too. It is going to be about opening day. The text line is open, 512-447-3776.
Patrick's big fat poll of the day on the Horn.
Big fat poll of the day today. You can get on the text line. We'll get it posted up on X or Twitter or wherever else. If you want to get it on there, we'll get it there. But since it is the home of the Rangers, since you can go listen to the Rangers tonight here on the Horn starting 6 p.m. pregame, I thought we'd ask, since they're the World Series champs, I'll give them the first floor of this. Who is the greatest Texas Ranger of all time? Who is on your list? Who is your number 1 Texas Ranger? It's not a Mount Rushmore. It's not a list of top guys you can say. You got to pick one. Who is your guy? Who's the guy that you say is the greatest Ranger of all time? Is it Pudge Rodriguez? Do you give it to Pudge because of how long he spent there, what he meant to the franchise? Are you a Nolan Ryan guy that even though he was there late in his career, what he did there, are you going to go with Nolan Ryan just because he may be the greatest player to ever play because he's one of the greatest players ever in baseball history? So do you give it to Nolan Ryan? Adrian Beltre going into the Hall of Fame, another really good player. Juan Gonzalez is on that list. Michael Young is probably on that list. There's a lot of guys you could go with on that list. Maybe it's somebody that you think is going to be on it now because this is the first team to win a World Series. So is it going to be someone who's on this team? Is it going to be Evan Carter coming out, who's one of the front runners for Rookie of the Year, who was part of that run last year to get a World Series? Wyatt Langford getting the call up. Do you think Wyatt Langford is going to be? You can't say he's the greatest. He has not played yet for the Rangers, so you can't say him. But are you going? There's a lot of them. So let me know who you think is the greatest Ranger of all time. I think we're going to be a little skewed because I think Astros fans are going to say Nolan Ryan.
Nolan Ryan, yeah,
because he also was an Astro, and the love of him in Texas is so big. But I'm asking because I want to see what the Rangers fans say. Who is the greatest Texas Ranger of all time? Let us know on the text line.
If that's the case, is he the greatest Ranger and Astro of all time?
But see, that's the thing. Is then when you get into the Astros too, I wouldn't say that Nolan Ryan's the greatest Astro of all time.
Just because he wasn't there for his full career.
And they didn't necessarily
like Kobe being Laker guy.
Yeah, they didn't necessarily have their best success with him there. I think when you say that, Jose Altuve is on that list.
Yeah, no, he is. I totally agree.
Because he's got 2. Yeah. He's got 2 World Series. He's got an MVP.
Yeah, it's all about your definition because that's what people say. Kobe's the greatest Laker is because he was always a Laker.
Yeah.
And that never changed. They consider him like the great. Some people say that's why he's got a case to be the greatest Laker of all time. Magic was great, but Magic had to retire early because of HIV and all that that stuff. And then Kareem had spent his career other places. So all the other stars, there's kind of a knock against them being the greatest Laker. So yeah, I guess it depends on your definition of it. And not just the greatest player that played for that team, but why are they the greatest Ranger of all time?
Yeah, and I think, and Adrian Beltre is a really good case as well because he was part of the team that, he was with the team for a long time. Yeah. He basically came, once he got out of the contract with the Mariners and had that, they had his rights for so long, but he also was a Mariner. So he was part of those teams. So you have to put that in. For the Astros too, you throw in like Biggio and Bagwell as greats that were with the team for so long. A lot of guys just don't have that luxury. At a certain point, the team moves on from you and goes a different direction, and you play the last year or two of your career somewhere else. But yeah, I want to know what you guys throw it in on the text line. Who is the greatest Texas Ranger of all time?
Oh, I'm an Astros fan, so I guess my vote doesn't count. But that's good. That's a good question though, because like I said, everybody's gonna have a different definition of it. And get into a good debate. All right, so yeah, we are gonna have the Rangers opening day game. We'll have a Rangers report actually coming up, so that big fat poll of the day is apropos. We'll have a Rangers report coming up at 9. We'll do it at 9:15, somewhere around there. Our Rangers report and get you ready for a Major League Baseball season, which is starting up. We'll do all that coming up. But yeah, you go big fat poll today. Go check it out. The text line 512-447-3776. All right, we come right back. We'll get the Horn headlines for you from my man Patrick. Also, we'll dive into some NFL topics. There's still potential dominoes that are the butterfly effect, if you will, from this Dak Prescott story that broke yesterday, that he may actually play the last year on his contract for the Dallas Cowboys and then hit free agency. What a wild scenario that would be, but it's becoming more and more of a reality, and we'll talk about that, and we'll get into some Texans conversation on the other side as well. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Local, and Rod Davis coming right back on the Horn. Mhm. Welcome back to the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. It is a new theme Thursday. My man Patrick Davis is the idealionaire. He comes up with the new themes of the day, and the new theme is dedicated to the official opening day of Major League Baseball, even though they actually have started the season already. As we know, the Dodgers and the Padres were playing overseas. But this is, I guess you can say, this is the opening day for the United States, like for the U.S.
Yeah, and
so they had their international opening day. This is the national opening.
And you would say all 30 teams are in action, but I think a couple have already been deemed rainouts. So there will be a couple rainouts.
Say that.
So I believe 26 of the 30 teams will be in action today.
There you go. So damn near every team. And it is kind of cool that usually every team is in action on opening day for Major League Baseball. So the opening day, we actually, because of opening day, we do have the Rangers on the horn. So we are your official station for the Rangers. We'll have a Rangers report coming up in the 9 o'clock. We'll talk some Rangers baseball. They are the defending champs. So a lot of props to the Rangers and a lot of excitement about the Rangers and what they're going to do this year, because a lot of people, including myself, thought last year they were ahead of schedule last season, and that's why they surprised a lot of people with the run that they made to the World Series and winning the World Series. This was supposed to be kind of the year where everything comes together for the Rangers, so that is a scary thought as an Astros fan. So we'll talk some Rangers coming up. We got to some NCAA tournament discussion and talk some NBA. We'll get back to that coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. We'll get back to that conversation. I want to talk some Dak Prescott. And last show we talked a lot about the story from Ian Rappaport that the Cowboys and Dak Prescott have a mutual understanding that he is expected to play out his contract, the last year of his contract, I should say, in 2024. And if that is the case, then he'll indeed hit free agency. I mean, that is the next domino that falls. They have had contract discussions, but I believe the term is they are not pressurized contract discussion. So there's no sense of urgency to get anything done. And the Cowboys are willing to admit they may blow this whole damn thing up and have Dak Prescott last year an All-Pro. Last year, his best season, finishing second in the MVP voting. He may end up hitting free agency after this season if things don't go exactly the way Jerry Jones wants. So that's his version of all in. So there's some domino effect issues from that. There's a butterfly effect that we didn't get to talk about yesterday because we kind of talked about the micro of that and didn't get really to the macro. So we'll get to that discussion and talk about, what team, if Dak indeed hits free agency, what team would Dak most likely be of interest to? Like, what team would be interested in Dak at that time? So we'll talk about that a little bit. And the CeeDee Lamb conversation, we didn't talk enough about it, but if you're CeeDee Lamb and you're about to sign a mega deal with the Cowboys coming off your best year, a monster year where you set Cowboys records and you were an All-Pro as well, what's your incentive to sign with the Cowboys if they don't have a franchise quarterback there? And will that hurt their negotiations to sign CeeDee Lamb? And why would you as a Cowboys want to sign CeeDee Lamb if you're blowing it up and you're not paying a franchise quarterback?
Yeah.
Is that a wise investment to pay a franchise number one receiver if you're not going to pay a franchise quarterback? And you can talk about a fire sale of that unprecedented kind of fire sale.
And you can throw Micah Parsons in there. If you don't know who your head coach or defensive coordinator is going to be past this year, you don't know how they want to use you. You've heard that they want you to be more of a linebacker, but you don't want to be a linebacker. You want to be a D end, and they're saying, no, we need you to be in a run protection and use that way. Yeah. How much do you want to resign when I can go out on the free agent market and be the top free agent defensively? Yeah,
no, I'm with you. And they obviously there are moves the Cowboys can make. They can franchise tag these guys, and it can become contentious. They've already applied the 5th-year option to Micah Parsons, so they're using some of those mechanisms. But yeah, I'm just saying from the Cowboys' perspective, and you made a great point there as well, Patrick. Very astute. Yeah, I mean, if you don't know who your defensive coordinator is going to be, and you're blowing it up, and blowing it up means are we rebuilding? Do you want to be paying the highest price for a defensive player in the history of the NFL if you're in a rebuilding mode? Do you want to be paying top dollar for a number one receiver when you're moving on from that quarterback potentially, and you're rebuilding the offense? there are a lot of other questions that arise when you entertain the possibility of moving on from Dak. That I hope the Cowboys have. I hope they have actually talked about it and as an organization, and I hope they have contingency plans in place, and I hope they have a plan initially, because they're going to be that's a hell of a gamble for the Cowboys to let a franchise quarterback walk, because these days we talk about the toughest thing to do in football is find a franchise quarterback. And they had one, and they still have one, but right now it looks like the Cowboys are at least willing to entertain the possibility of letting him walk. All right, we'll get the horn headlines, and we'll come back and talk a little bit more about Dak Prescott and, like I said, what the domino effect could be if he does indeed play out the last year on his contract and hit free agency. We'll talk some Texans as well. A lot of praise being thrown the Texans direction, and Mina Kimes, who does a great job on NFL Live, breaking down film and really analyzing rosters for them. She had something to say about the Texans that I brought up yesterday about how they kind of approach the draft and why the draft is such an interesting situation for the Texans, because they have a lot of the premium positions already filled. And we heard from D'Amico Ryans yesterday. D'Amico Ryan said he believes they're in the sweet spot of the draft where they traded down. That's their sweet spot. And I think that can mean a lot of different things, but I think that sweet spot for the Texans, to him, I think that means that they don't necessarily need a premium position. And that's where you draft premium positions, is really high in the first round. Hey, what we need are really good football players that can contribute right away, add talented depth. If that's going to be the case, we don't necessarily need to pay premium prices for those non-premium players by drafting them in the first round. Let's get to the second round, better value, half the guaranteed money, and you sometimes can get players who are just as good. And they probably don't have 23 first round grades on guys either. Drop down, and based on their big board, they'll find more value in the second round. But Mina Kimes talking about the Texans. We'll get to that audio as well. Also, let's get to the horn headlines here first. We'll come back, and then we can talk some NFL on the backside of it. Patrick's going to get us updated and informed with all the horn headlines of the day.
All right, your horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. It was a busy night in the NBA with playoff seeding implications. The Rockets fought for an overtime win over Oklahoma City Thunder. They won 32-126 to push their win streak to 10 and keep pressure on the Warriors for the 10 spots. Jalen Green had another good scoring night, putting up 37 points, and rookie Amin Thompson added 25 points and 15 rebounds. The Warriors overcame an early ejection of Draymond Green to beat the Magic 101-93 and maintain their one-game lead over the Rockets. The LA Clippers edged the 76ers 108-107 with a late defensive stop to keep a 2-game lead over the Mavs for the 4 seed. Elsewhere in the NBA, the Spurs won their second straight, topping the Jazz 118-111 behind Devin Vassell's 31 points. In college basketball, the round of 16 kicks off tonight in the NCAA tournament with 4 games, including 1 seeds UConn and North Carolina in action against San Diego State and Alabama. Other favorites, Arizona, will take on Clemson, and Big 12 champions Iowa State face off against Illinois. Texas baseball and softball start their weekend series tonight, allowing for an Easter Sunday off. Longhorns baseball will take on number 23 Kansas State in Manhattan with LeBaron Johnson Jr., Ace Whitehead, and Max Grubbs, your projected starters, while Texas softball heads to Stillwater to take on number 8 Oklahoma State. Texas has had poor luck in Stillwater recently with their last regular season win in March of 2019. And finally, today marks opening day for the MLB season, with games kicking off at 2 p.m. and running till late tonight. The Astros begin their season against the Yankees in Houston at 3:10 p.m. today, and the reigning World Series champion Rangers start off against the Cubs in Arlington at 6:35. That game can be heard with pregame starting at 6 p.m. right here on The Horn, and that is your Horn Headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the horn headlines of the day. So talking about the conversation, by the way, there's another story about the Cowboys too, that I believe Mike Fisher threw it out there, and I've seen it from I believe Michael Gelkin also had an article about it over at the Dallas Morning News. The possible reunion between Zeke and the Cowboys is also a reality. That could happen. They need running backs, and he might come really. I mean, I think they're still paying Zeke, if I'm not mistaken. But he can come relatively cheap and obviously knows the organization real well. Dalvin Cook is also someone Michael Gelkin said that he's monitoring, because There is mutual interest from his camp and the Cowboys and Dalvin Cook. I don't know if Dalvin Cook's got anything left, but the Cowboys, they need running back help. So Zeke could be coming back to the Cowboys, back home. That's a possibility. And Zeke, by the way, in short yardage, actually still a pretty good weapon. Zeke just not your every down running back. That's not going to happen. All right, so let's have the conversation about Dak. Let's have the thought experiment of Dak Prescott actually playing out the last year. Let's say it all goes relatively well. Let's say he just does what he's been doing, which is play like a top quarterback in the NFL. I'm not saying he's going to the Super Bowl or even advancing past the divisional round. And he ends up hitting free agency. Like I said, this is a wild scenario, but like I said, more and more, it's becoming a possibility for the Cowboys. And if Dak doesn't hit free agency, what teams right now could you see? Because this is going to be tough before the draft. Because the draft is going to, I think, eliminate a lot of teams possibly that could be interested in Dak as a free agent. But what teams would you throw out there that would be in the Dak sweepstakes if Dak indeed hit free agency in 2025? Because that's what it would be.
So in 2025, and it does matter.
The offseason.
Yeah, because it matters in the sense of if you hit in the draft, then you're clearly not drafting. But if you get somebody who's not necessarily the guy, or you take somebody and you feel, we've seen teams not really care too much about moving on from a quarterback. If they don't feel it was the right hit, they could do that still. I mean, we know the Patriots are going to try and find their guy, but if they don't go quarterback, which there are reports that they could go wide receiver, they could trade back in this draft and not try and get a wide receiver and wait another year. They could do that. If they say we're so many pieces away from getting from winning, then we don't need to sign somebody. The Patriots are somebody that could wait a year, trade back in that 3 spot to a team like Minnesota or the Raiders or somebody else or the Broncos who really wants to get a quarterback. They could trade back that spot, not take a quarterback early. Then that's a team that would be very much on pace to go get them. We could look at Pittsburgh. They have 2 low-cost options. The
Steelers are a good one because you got 2 guys in there that basically Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, they're experiments at this point, and they want more of a longer-term solution. Character is something that matters for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I like the Steelers as an option in 2025 because we don't know what's going to happen with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. If it doesn't work out, they'll be willing to move on because that's, like you said, very low cost. They're paying less than $6 million for both of those quarterbacks. So I agree. The Steelers are one at the top of my list. They made the top of my list. The New York teams, both of them.
That's true.
Jets and Giants.
That's true.
On the top of that list because Daniel Jones, I think that experiment will be basically. I'm looking at teams whose experiment at quarterback is going to inevitably fail or most likely fail.
Yes.
In 2024. So who are those teams who are right now? They have a bridge quarterback or whatever their plan is at quarterback right now. Isn't a plan that I think is going to succeed, and those are the teams I'm looking at. So the Seattle Seahawks, they're not. I don't know if they're in there. They could be because Geno Smith is actually playing pretty well. But I'll say a team like Las Vegas. What's Las Vegas doing at quarterback?
Yeah, they don't draft somebody here, then you figure it's Aiden O'Connell again. You're getting those early reports of
where are they drafting at. They drafted. I got to look at their draft.
They have to trade up to get somebody top.
Yeah, so they're not at the okay.
Yeah, they'd have to trade because they were Antonio Pierce got them played well enough down the stretch that they weren't one of the worst teams in the league.
Right. You're right about that.
They're not a high enough pick that they'd be able to get, but you could still get a Bo Nix or a Michael Penix Jr. or somebody like that and see if that works out. So there are guys that will be available to them. Some people have Drake May falling now. Some people are saying that Drake May is going to drop really far, that his people are not as fond of him, so he could end up there. But that is a team that if they don't get somebody, that they're definitely in that conversation.
Yeah, like I like Vegas. Yeah, Vegas is at 13 in their first pick. That'll be too far down to pick one of the elite QBs. So Vegas, yep, I think they're in there because they're always the Vegas. And Vegas, by the way, is one of the teams, kind of like the Cowboys. They don't draft a lot of quarterbacks.
No,
you go look at their history. They don't draft a lot of quarterbacks. They usually bring in veteran quarterbacks, and that also would fit their history, aligned with what they do as a franchise. So Dak would be an option for them. I like the Giants thing though. That's sexy. I don't know if the Giants would do it. The Giants know Dak as well as anybody, and Dak has dominated the Giants. So maybe the Giants would think about doing that in the same division. That would be, that's petty. And
It's
in a
petty,
good
but
way,
hey,
though.
where did
In
Saquon
a
go?
good way.
Same division.
Yeah, you're right. Same division.
So they could all be in that incestuous division.
That's a great point.
Minnesota, I put on that list.
What are they gonna do?
Because we don't know. They have Sam Darnold right now. They haven't moved up in the draft yet. So we don't know what their experiment's going to be in Minnesota. They could be somebody who says we did okay. If we're trying to keep Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and Hawkinson, we have weapons here.
That's a great point about the Justin Jefferson thing. It's kind of the CeeDee Lamb discussion that we were having. Yeah, you want to keep. There's no point in signing Justin Jefferson to the richest deal in the history of the NFL for a wide receiver if you don't find a good quarterback.
Yeah.
And I like that. And right now they got 2 first rounders. The belief is that they'll trade up in the draft and try to get one of those top spots. But as you pointed out, whatever team trades out of that spot may be a team that should be in the Dak conversation, because they may be a team that has a quarterback that they're not sure about. That maybe not this draft they're going to draft a quarterback, but maybe later on. I think the Steelers. I think you're right about them. I'm with you on them 100%. I in agreement there. What about the Vegas? I think we're in agreement on Vegas. I like both of the New York teams. I think we're there as well. What about a team like Tennessee?
If Will Levis really failed.
If you don't like,
I just don't think I don't think they'd spend the money.
They are cheap.
I don't think they'd put the money up front. And I think other teams definitely would. I'd say Carolina would be more in front to spend money than Tennessee would.
He spends money, but oh man,
because he's walking in with cash
quickly. Yeah.
I do think he would do it that quickly because he's fired every coach in 2 weeks.
No, I'm not saying he wouldn't. No, I think I'm agreeing with you. He would, but because he is pretty rash and hasty with some of his decisions. And he spends money because he's not afraid. He's still paying like 3 different head coaches right now, so he don't give a damn about spending money. So you're right about that. That's a good one. You're right. I'll agree with you on that. Yeah.
I put him, and I don't put him on the highest point of that list. But if you want to say, if we're going into Tennessee territory, I think that we're talking about money, and I don't think Tennessee pays him. And I think Carolina would walk in there and say, "Oh, I'm a billionaire. I don't care. Here, here's some money."
That dude spends. He does. I'm not saying wisely either, but he spends.
That's the point. Is he walking in there? Hey, Dak, we'll guarantee you 2 years, 3 years this contract straight up front. Here's the money.
Right. He's like, I got it. I could do that because I got it already.
Yeah.
No, honestly, you've convinced me. That's a great argument. You got it, because he's such a volatile owner. I can see him just getting totally frustrated with the whole damn thing, going, all right, he's out. Let's go find something else. And then he wants something that's a sure thing. Not saying Dak's a sure thing, but he's a proven commodity.
Yeah.
And that's what he would want. He's like, no, I'm not going to the draft anymore. I want a proven commodity. Give me somebody that I've seen being all pro in this league, and Dak would be the only option, actually. Not the best option, but the only option.
The only option. And you can trade Bryce Young and still get something back for him too, because people would still see him. So you say, we trade him off, we'll go get Dak Prescott and we'll be good. That's just a possibility if he gets out there. And that's one of those ones that if you sit and you say money-wise, where a lot of these teams would be a little bit more cautious about, okay, well, this is his 3rd contract, how many years? I think the Jets are in that conversation as well. I like them because of what they just did with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
But they have the issue of they're coming up where their window is really, I don't know if they could offer him a long-term deal because they have so many young guys they're going to have to pay.
Yeah. They got to pay Garrett Wilson. They got to pay Sauce Gardner coming up too. They got some contracts, but man, a quarterback like Dak hitting free agency is rare. Teams are there are always so many quarterback hungry teams. I mean, we're going through teams right now, but man, we're missing guys. Hell, honestly, the Rams are going to be in the market for a quarterback pretty damn soon. I don't know if they're going to draft one or if he's going to trade. He traded for Matthew Stafford, inherited Jared Goff. They're going to be in the market for a QB pretty soon. I don't know if that'll be Dak Prescott, but I don't know when Matthew Stafford's thinking about retiring. He still looks pretty damn good, but he's getting up there in age. So but
the Rams may also slip more into a full rebuild mode at a certain point too.
They may,
because if Cooper Kupp's getting older, you just lost Aaron Donald to retirement. if Matt Stafford goes.
That opens up the books, actually.
It opens up the
You know what
book,
I mean?
but
With-
I don't know
with
if you're
Aaron- with
bringing
Aaron
in.
Donald.
Yeah, I think you'd rather draft a quarterback and try and get that window
No,
open that
I
way.
agree with you. Yeah, they could try to.
Especially if you
tank
have a
and go
quarterback
that way.
whisperer like Sean McVay, where he.
No, I know. Tanking in LA don't go over well, though.
Nope, it does not.
Tanking in Hollywood does not go over really well. And this is a team that said F them picks.
It's true.
All right. So I think they
It's possible.
they
You're right.
could
It's
surprise some
possible.
people. Because I think the Matthew Stafford thing surprised some folks when it went down. But no, that's a good point. It's good conversation there. I like your pick about the Panthers, though. That's a nice one I didn't think about. All right, we're a little late here, so let's push Rod's rant, and we'll just combine our Texans conversation and Rod's rant. And now also I want to get to the conversation about CeeDee Lamb with the Dallas Cowboys a little bit too. So we'll just combine all those conversations, have an NFL kind of hodgepodge of Rod's rant of the day. We'll do it on the other side to make sure we're staying on time. So we'll do that coming up. This is the Rodcast featuring my man Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. We're coming right back on the Horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. It is time for Rod's rant of the day. I want to continue our conversation about the Cowboys and the Texans a little bit. And Mina Kimes was talking to Pro Football Focus analyst. I believe he goes by Tampa Bay Trey. But they essentially were talking about the Texans and what they could be viewing in the draft and what they could be eyeing in the draft, emphasizing in the draft. And they made some interesting points. One that I brought up yesterday, actually, the beauty of we see the luxury for the Texans right now in this draft is that they don't necessarily need premium positions. They have key players, elite players, or at least guys with high upside at all the premium positions. On defense, at cornerback, they got Stingley. At defensive end on the edge rushers, they just signed Danielle Hunter, but then they got Will Anderson as well. You go look on offense at wide receiver, Nico Collins had a breakout year. Still got Tank Dell, who got hurt, but he was in the midst of a breakout campaign as well. Quarterback, CJ Stroud. Left tackle, they got one of the best tackles in football with Larry Tunsil. So all the key premium positions which you would covet in the obviously the first round is where you get those guys. You really have those already in place if you're the Texans. So you have the luxury of picking best talent available. Maybe one of the reasons they traded to the sweet spot, as D'Amico Ryans calls it, in this upcoming draft. So here's Mina Kimes, and she does great work with NFL Live, but she also does her own podcast talking. This is her talking about the Texans and what they need and what they could be looking to acquire in the NFL draft.
When I pulled up this depth chart, I was like, this is a good football team. Receiver, still something that they could work on. Although huge on Nico Collins, Tank Dell comes back. That's a position that I would like them to address. Corner, they did add Jeff Okudah. We'll see if that, it's kind of a reclamation. Stingley was excellent. That's the other position that I would get better at. Outside of that, Trevor, offensive line depth, what are you looking at with the Texans?
For the Texans, I just have question mark. Wide receiver, interior offensive line, corner, I guess. I'm just excited to watch this team again next season because they got so far ahead of where we thought that their rebuild was going to be with what D'Amico Ryans did for the rest of that team, what Bobby Slowick did from the offensive side of things, and then, of course, what CJ Stroud was able to do and slingshot their rebuild into some winning ways. Wide receiver is where I go naturally just because I selfishly want the best playmakers on this team now because Stroud's awesome. But you mentioned Nico Collins, you mentioned Tank Dell. They still have Noah Brown, who I think is fine. Robert Woods is somebody who I like as a preferred veteran in this league. I like Xavier Hutchinson. I like John Mechie, right? So it's like even the depth guys at wide receiver, I'm okay with. Now that they don't pick in the first round, now you're picking in the second round. Well, okay, are one of those second round receivers going to be worth it for you? Probably not. So again, I guess I go to more depth, more competition on the offensive line. I love the Danielle Hunter signing. I also love the Nico Autry signing. I think that Autry's signing went underrated once Hunter signed there for them.
It's the opposite, right, of the Jags where I'm like, oh, they signed all these players, but I still view them as needs. Whereas the Texans, it's all these players, I'm like, okay, good. You don't need to draft. You're good at edge. You're good at linebacker. Joe Mixon, however you feel about the deal they did, I feel like they're pretty set at running back. This just is such a well-built football team now.
You got to give Nick Caserio some credit. It does seem like a well-built football team, but they don't have a lot of holes right now. I think the challenge for them in the draft is going to be to decide between we have an elite young quarterback, and he's on right now an accelerated pace of development. He's an elite quarterback. Some people would already consider him a top 10 quarterback in the NFL if you want to go that route. At least some of the stats would make that argument. So do you just draft weapons and acquire weapons to put around him? Because you didn't really do that in free agency. You brought in a running back, Joe Mixon, and you re-signed Dalton Schultz. But most of your acquisitions in free agency were for defense, and I love them. They were great. Autry was a great signing. Azeez Al-Shaair, that's a great signing for them too. Danielle Hunter's a great signing. So I wonder in the draft if they're going to focus on getting weapons for around their young quarterback. Or if because they have a defensive-minded coach, right, they're going to focus on building that defense and still stockpiling defensive linemen, which is kind of what the San Francisco model was, and going with the thought that if you have an elite quarterback, he doesn't necessarily need elite weapons all around him. We can invest in other areas of the team because the elite quarterback will carry the day. This is kind of what the Patriots did with Tom Brady. You know, they didn't invest necessarily in a lot of offense because Tom Brady could basically give you a discount, if you will, on offense because he was able to uplift the play of other players around him. I don't know. I think I would just give my guy a lot of weapons. I think I would go toward building and stockpiling weapons around CJ Stroud, my young quarterback. I'd invest more in him and double down on that investment. That's
But
the way
I think you can do that. You don't necessarily have to do it. You know, they don't have a first round pick, but I don't think you have to do it super early. I mean, I think you can take a wide receiver in the 4th round, and that's a good enough wide receiver. You know, they're going to be competing, but you're not trying to draft the number 1 because you say Nico Collins is the number 1. You say Tank Dell's going to be one of the favorites, CJ Stroud. I think you can go to CJ Stroud and say, who do you like? Who would you like to play with and go get one there? I mean, if JT Sanders is available, I think that would be interesting. But beyond that, I don't know if there's a tight end you're necessarily going to really go out and draft unless you're going to take one later on. So unless you get that in the 2nd, 3rd round, JT Sanders, you may go that route. And then I think you try and take a running back somewhat high to try and, you know, make sure that running back room is a little bit deeper than it was last year. But other than that, I mean, there's not too many places to put weapons. So you say maybe 3 picks out of the draft goes to offense and weapons, which is still plenty. But, you know, if we're just talking about weapons, I don't know if you use more than 3 picks, which means it still opens up plenty to take on defense, and you still draft no linemen in there. You can still go get a lot of places because you don't necessarily, as you've talked about a lot, Rod, you don't necessarily have gaping holes in this Texans team right now in this depth chart, and definitely not at premium positions that a lot of these places you'd be able to find something a little bit later down and go with guys with high ceilings.
Yeah. And also, I think the third factor, or at least the third thing to consider, is you don't know how the draft's going to go.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody drops in that draft that you think is really high up on your board and they start dropping for whatever reason, you may decide, all right, you know what, we got to make a move here. So it's one of those things where I just wonder what the thought process is going to be. But Nick Caserio, honestly, in Nick Caserio, as they call him now in H-Town, I trust. I mean, he's done a great job in the draft so far. He made more trades in last year's draft than anybody else in the NFL, any other GM. He's made more trades actually than any GM in the NFL since he became the Texans GM. So he's gonna make some moves. And remember, there's a lot of talk at the NFL Combine that Nick Caserio was gonna make a lot of moves during free agency, and that in the draft that he was gonna make a move. Now he already made one, but I wouldn't doubt if he's making more moves when the draft comes around. Trading out of the first round obviously was the move he made in the draft, but I wouldn't doubt if there's multiple moves made in this upcoming draft depending on how everything falls.
And it wouldn't
he's an active GM,
and it wouldn't surprise me if he gave up a pick or 2 to get a veteran. If you talk about a weapon for CJ Stroud, not necessarily in the draft, but we know we know they were in on the Keenan Allen trade. They were talking to him. So if there's a wide receiver out there that they feel could add a veteran presence, fit in that slot, where they feel that would add something more than taking a shot on a guy with a high ceiling, gives CJ Stroud another weapon, but it gives a different kind of weapon where it's not another young guy that you kind of got to get used to. This is someone who knows how to walk in day one and try and be a winner. So I could see that be a move where if you say we don't really need, we can draft offensive linemen all day. We can take these guys over here, but at a certain point we feel we can get guys in undrafted free agency. We can bolster our roster that way. Maybe trade 2 picks or something like that to try and go get a player and someone who is more desperate for players or for needs more help in that. You can go get somebody that would be a veteran wide receiver, especially in that slot.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. And speaking of slot wide receivers, and moving on from the Texans just briefly here, I wonder what the Cowboys are going to do about CeeDee Lamb. I think that'll say a lot. I mean, CeeDee Lamb is probably the one of the Cowboys who is most likely to get the contract extension next, because they've already put the 5th-year option out there on Micah. We just heard, Dak Prescott may end up playing out his last year on that deal with the Cowboys and potentially hitting free agency. We discussed that a lot. So to me, it says that CD's the only Cowboy who's potentially up for a big extension that I haven't heard anything negative about, or they haven't clarified what they're going to do. And by the way, they can still negotiate with Micah, but I'm just saying in terms of the status, his contract status, the 5th-year option has been applied to him. But I haven't heard anything about a CD contract extension. It has been crickets pretty much. But my point is he also a guy that you're willing to let walk? If you're willing to let Dak walk, there is no point in keeping an all-pro wide receiver. Maybe that can expedite your rebuild if that's what you're going to do. But that is, or if you're going to draft a quarterback really high, you want them to have a weapon like CD. But that's something now that I've been thinking more about. That, okay, if Dak does leave, then why are they going to keep CD? And maybe that's the reason that we've been hearing crickets on the CD thing as well. That we haven't heard anything about a CD contract extension too, because once again, he's part of that contract year that everybody's in. But can you imagine if Jerry indeed is going to blow this thing up? If he lets Dak play it out in this last year and Dak doesn't get to the NFC title game or the Super Bowl, and they decide we're going to blow it all up, and the amount of teams that will be inquiring about, okay, what do you want for a CD Lamb? What do you want for even a Michael Parsons? I don't even know. I guess maybe that's how you rebuild it quick. If you're going to rebuild it, is that how you do it?
Yeah.
Getting a ton of draft picks for those guys. That seems crazy because those are great players that you've already developed
but I mean,
through your homegrown system.
And if you're talking
I guess that's the only way you would do it.
Yeah, and if you're talking about rebuilding this team, you got to remember next year, if Dak Prescott walked, if he just walks, they get nothing back for him. He walks away. They're still paying him a ton of money in dead money. They're still paying Michael Gallup in dead money next year. There's other players that will be in dead money next year because of restructures and everything else. They're going to be $60 to $70 million in cap space alone in dead money next season, as how it's set up right now, unless they re-sign some of these guys and push that money back further. So if they don't do that and restructure these deals, they're basically for the next 2 years, because 2026, there's still, I think, $30 or $40 million in dead cap in that year. So you'd say there's a lot of dead cap that would be going through those 2 years, and it would basically be a rebuild of let's trade off Micah, let's trade off CD Lamb, let's get all the draft picks, basically kill it for try and draft for 2 seasons and get all these young guys in for 2 seasons and try and start back up again. The problem with that is that can work, or you could miss in the draft in those 2 years. And now
and just totally spiral. You could just hit a downward spiral as an organization,
because now you don't have any commodities anymore, and you don't have anything.
And you've compounded multiple bad decisions after another.
Yeah.
And but I'm with you. I think, like I said, I think the only way they do it is maybe that's why we have no CD contract extensions. That's why Micah's on the 5th-year option, because hey man, we might have to trade those guys. That's the only way to rebuild. Give me your point about the dead money. That's the most responsible way, because that is your access to cheap labor, good labor is the NFL draft. And to have them on those cheap contracts, discounted contracts for 4 to 5 years, giving you a chance to rebuild, but you gotta hit. If you trade off Micah, you'll get multiple first-round picks. You trade off CD, you will get multiple first-round picks, because those guys are all pros in their prime. So the market, and trust me, there will be a huge market for those guys if you're going to trade them. And I guess that's how you start the rebuild, but you got to hit on those draft picks. But I will say, Cowboys have a really good history of hitting on draft picks. They are the most homegrown team in the NFL. They got 9 All-Pros on their team right now, and those 9 All-Pros, they were homegrown players, right? That's how the Cowboys operate. So maybe they're really confident in their draft skill and their scouting department, and they say, hey man, we know we can draft. So if we're going to rebuild this thing, let's do it through the NFL draft, get ourselves out of the salary cap hell they've been in, the dead money you're talking about. So that's the route. If that's the route, Cowboys fans are not going to like it. It is going to be brutal.
But it
might be the only way.
It might be the way.
The only way out is through.
And that would be the reality is 2027 would be you pushing to open your window back up 2027, 2028 is basically where it would be. That's when you'd start spending more money. But that, again, puts you into, well, are you going to go out and spend money in free agency then? In 2027 and 2028, because then you won't have the cap hit. You won't have all these, you're going to have to rebuild. You're going to have to bring guys in. And, that's down the line for Jerry. He doesn't like to spend in free agency. You have to then. You have to.
Yeah, and also given that's just we're playing this hypothetical out.
Yeah,
you better hit on the coach. None of this matters if you don't hit on the damn coach. So when you fire Mike McCarthy, you got to hit on the coach first, and then you got to hit on the quarterback. Whew, man, a lot has got to go right. It's a lot. You're giving yourself no margin for error here if this is the route you end up going.
But it is. I'm with you. You can see both sides of it, because you can see the side of it of that is craziness, because it could spiral horribly for you, and you're not on TV anymore, and you're not America's team anymore, and you finally gave it up because you weren't competitive for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and now you're a joke, and you're the Commanders, and you're that team. Or you could say, look, it doesn't, if we're not winning playoff games and we're going, and now we're $60 million in dead cap anyway, and we can't build, we have a tiny payroll now. We can't keep Micah or CD because we just don't have anybody. So we're having to let all our free agents go to try and hold on to a 10-win season with no playoff wins. What's the point of doing that either?
I do see both sides, but oh man, it is fascinating right now what's going on with the Cowboys. And I told you guys at the start of it, I said, man, something weird is going on with the Dallas Cowboys this offseason. It's not like the normal offseasons for Dallas Cowboys. It started out that way with them essentially passing on the free agency frenzy. They always do that, but they also always sign their guys because we like our guys. And then they weren't signing their own guys. We like our guys. And then they weren't spending even at the end of free agency. And now we are where we are. I'm quoting Jerry Jones here, where Dak and Mike McCarthy and CD and Micah and Mike Zimmer, everybody is on a contract year with the Dallas Cowboys. Crazy.
Hey, and this is the best part about it all. I don't think they know yet, because it depends on how the team plays this season in a contract year. How invested are you going to be in this team? How invested is Jerry and Steven going to be if this team underperforms again? If they're a 12-11 win team or a 10-win team, and if they don't go out, and if Dak has a great regular season, but they lose to the top teams again, and they make it to the playoffs, but they don't win a game. Yeah. That's a much different reaction than you make it to a Super Bowl, but you don't win, which is kind of worst case scenario for this team.
It is the worst case scenario, because that's when Dak's stock would be all time high. And you didn't win, but now you're in a situation where you got to pay Dak and you got to pay all of these guys top dollar.
And Mike McCarthy.
And Super Bowl and Mike McCarthy. Yeah. But honestly, Jerry Jones will probably be so high off at the moment, he wouldn't even be thinking about that. But you're right. I hope the Cowboys have considered all of the possibilities and scenarios and have a plan for each in case they happen. Because I'm with you. If you are going to threaten basically the threat of letting Dak walk in free agency, you kind of better be prepared to follow through with it, because he might call you on it. He might call you on it, man. He might call you on it. And if he does, that could end up being trouble for the Dallas Cowboys. All right, because Trey Lance ain't the guy. Not yet. He ain't ready to be the guy yet. But maybe that's what they're thinking. Maybe it's like, no. We've seen more out of Trey than anybody else. We know that we can resuscitate. We've seen this before, right? We've seen teams like Jared Goff, or we just talked about a Geno Smith most recently. We've seen these stories of quarterbacks, Baker Mayfield, been able to resuscitate their careers at other places. Maybe the Trey Lance story. Maybe it's the reinvention of Trey Lance. Maybe the new chapter is in Dallas.
But Trey Lance ain't under contract either.
That's true, but he's cheap right now. That's a good point.
Cheaper right now, but he could walk at the end of the year too.
Great point. Yeah. Hey, everybody's on the contract here with the Cowboys, man. That includes Trey Lance. All right, good stuff there, Patrick. We'll come back on the other side. We'll get to what the facts, what the stats right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn, Rod Babers. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time for what the facts and what the stats here on the Rodcast. All right, since it is the start of the Major League Baseball season, and my man Patrick's actually big fat poll of the day, we'll get into that. Actually, that has to do with the Rangers' start to the season, which you can hear their start to the season right here on the Horn, because we are the official station for the Rangers. And we'll get to a Rangers report. That'll be coming up at 9. We'll get to like 9:15, somewhere around there. But before I get to this stat, because it is Rangers related, we haven't addressed the big fat poll of the day this hour. So, Patrick, for the folks out there who didn't hear the big fat poll of the day, but you probably go catch up with that conversation on the text line 512-447-3776, get them acquainted with what the big fat poll of the day question is today.
Big fat bull of the day. Who is the greatest Texas Ranger of all time? Greatest of all time.
Greatest of all time. Yes, interesting conversation, because you can go a lot of different ways with it. So a lot of Rangers talk on the show today. If you want to talk about that, or at least discuss it, give us your thoughts, your suggestion on who is the greatest Ranger of all time. You can do it on the text line 512-447-3776. A lot of people are thinking that the young phenom Wyatt Langford has a really bright future, and one day he could be in that conversation as the greatest Ranger of all time. This factoid is about him. So how about this? Wyatt Langford already on the opening day roster for the Rangers. His lightning fast ascent and meteoric rise is damn near unprecedented. Only 2 position players who came out of the draft since it began in 1965 made an opening day roster with less experience in the minors and or the majors. Pete, I'm going to screw this name up. Hope I get it right. And Rangers fans are probably going to, because they know this guy, so they're probably going to correct me on the text line. Pete Incagviglia. Pete Incagviglia. Hope I got that right. Part of the 86 Rangers. 0 games, by the way. How about that? 0 games. And then he ended up being on the opening day roster. So he must have just lit up the spring league and the grapefruit league and that kind of stuff. And then he's, by the way, so he was a Ranger. And then John Olerud, he on the 1990 Blue Jays, just 6 games for him before he was called up and at least made the opening day roster for the Blue Jays. So it just took him just 6 games in the minors before he did that. So that's pretty amazing, and just shows you that they are really high on this young man, and he is supposed to be an absolute stud for the Rangers. So everybody really excited about Wyatt Langford. There you go. Only Pete Incaviglia, who in the Grapefruit League, he had 30. I think he hit 30 homers as a rookie. So he had a great rookie season. I think he had like 206 for his 12-year career, though. But he ended up being called up, and like I said, John Olerud, the only guys who had fewer games in the minor leagues or in the spring leagues before getting called up to the majors and making the opening day roster. The number was 44 for Wyatt Langford, though, in case you were wondering. He had 44 games in their spring league and like the Grapefruit League or whatever combined.
Yeah.
So there you go. We'll talk some more Rangers all throughout the show. We got nice little Rangers factoids for you. I know you Rangers fans are really excited coming off that World Series run for the Rangers, and a lot of people believe the Rangers are going to be better. Well, we know they're going to be better because they'll have Wyatt Langford on the roster. But this was supposed to be the year that the Rangers really were make a championship run. At least that was the prediction. But they were ahead of schedule last year and won the World Series. So a lot of excitement surrounding the Rangers. And we'll talk more about that when we have our Rangers report coming up in the 9 o'clock. All right, that is your fact of the day in the What the Facts segments. All right, we come back. We'll get into some NBA. We got a lot of factoids we're going to share about the NBA season, getting close to the playoffs. So my man Patrick's getting excited. So we'll talk about 2 of the hottest teams in the NBA right now, especially on the Western Conference side, who are actually playing best basketball in the great state of Texas. We'll get into that on the other side and talk some NCAA tournament. We got tournament games starting up tonight, so we'll give you our predictions on the Sweet 16 and who's going to end up making it to the Elite 8. All of that and more when we return right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers, coming right back on the Horn. Hi, welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a new Theme Thursday edition of the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. He is the ideallionaire on the show, comes up with the musically themed days of the week. And the new theme for today is all about Major League Baseball. It's opening day for Major League Baseball. Well, it's the national opening day for Major League Baseball. So all the songs dedicated to baseball, the great sport of baseball. We'll be talking a lot of baseball. We've got your Rangers report coming up in the 9 o'clock. We'll talk some Texas Rangers. We actually did talk a little Texas Rangers in our What the Facts segment, and the big fat poll of the day is also Rangers related because we are your official Ranger station. So we're showing some love to the Rangers. Patrick, let the folks know what the big fat poll of the day is. You can go check that out on the text line 512-447-3776. Also, like I said, Rangers related, showing a lot of Rangers love today. They deserve it. They're the World Series champions.
World Series champs.
So the victor go to spoils. There you go.
Who is the greatest Texas Ranger of all time? And I know, and we've getting a lot of people that are, and I don't know if they're just Rangers fans or if they're from other places. And I get Nolan Ryan may be the greatest player who has ever played for the Rangers. He played for the Rangers for 5 seasons.
There you go.
3 of them were good. 2 of them were at the end of his career, and it was slowing down. They weren't bad, but they were not great seasons of Nolan Ryan.
Quit trying to influence people's
I'm
decision
just telling you,
and their choice
this
about
is why,
who they think is the greatest Ranger.
This is why I'm saying it is because I've gotten
subjective.
too many. I've gotten too many. It's a no doubter Nolan Ryan, and it's not a no doubter Nolan Ryan. You can say it's Nolan Ryan, but to say a guy who had 3 good seasons on a team is the greatest of all time for that team I'm just saying that's a take. But it's not a no doubter. Why is there even a conversation take?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, yes, I agree with you on that. But if you want to say Nolan Ryan,
you can say Nolan Ryan. He's on it. We put it. The poll is online on X now. You can go and find it there as well. Nolan Ryan, yeah. I put him on there. I'm not saying he's not. I'm just saying that you cannot say, well, we shouldn't even be having the discussion because I think people are adding in other years. He played forever. But
he played for a long time.
He played for a long time. Yeah, he went to I love the story of that when he went to the Rangers and all the press was so excited and they're really happy. And then they realize that they're sitting around waiting for him to show up. And then they're like, hey, how old is he? And they start going around trying to figure it. And someone has to go get like a baseball almanac because this is pre-internet clearly. So they have to go find a baseball almanac to find out. And then they're like, he's like 41. They're like, oh, that changes our because they're thinking they're getting the in his prime the best because he was still so good, and he was still in the MVP voting and Cy Young voting the next year. He was still in the MVP voting in his second year with the Rangers. He made the All-Star team his first year with the Rangers. It was his last All-Star appearance, but he led the league in strikeouts I think his second year as well. So he had those first 2 years were really, really good. Third year was still good. And then it fell off a little bit where, injuries were starting and age was starting to take a little bit of a toll on him. But yeah, I do love that story, though. Just the excitement tempered a little bit when they realized they're like, wait, he's been in the league forever, hasn't he? He's
forever. Played forever, played at a high level forever.
Yeah.
Never won a Cy Young award.
Never. We're still the biggest. That is probably the biggest slight in
biggest snub, right?
Biggest snub in in a award history to just say never won one.
Never and then, played how many seasons?
There was a great YouTube video I saw where it was a guy basically breaking it down to the reasons why he didn't. And I think he said there was 3 to 4 years that he was snubbed on. That the other ones, you could make the argument that somebody else had a better season or because of the team's record or whatever else you could put it. But there was 3 to 4 years where it's there's no excuse why he did not win this Cy Young.
Yeah. No, it's mind blowing to think that dude was that good for that long and never ever won a Cy Young award. I don't even know how that's possible. But that was the case. Yeah, that's one of those weird, freaky stats, trivia questions later on that people can't believe it would seem mind blowing. But there you go. That's the big fat poll of the day. Wants to know who's the greatest Ranger of all time. Who do you think in your mind is the greatest Ranger of all time? And honestly, it's true that Nolan Ryan, if you're thinking along the lines that he's the greatest Ranger of all time because he's the best player that ever played for the organization, then I bet a lot of people think he's the greatest Astro of all time too, even though he didn't play have his entire career and didn't play his entire career with the Astros. He was there long enough. People say, "Oh no, he did enough great things, achieved enough great things. He's the greatest Astro." I'm not saying that I agree with that, but hell, that's that's rare where you could be in the conversation to be the greatest of all time with multiple organizations. There are only a few players like that in sports. You know, LeBron's in that conversation, Wilt's in that conversation, you know, Kareem, those kind of guys where it's like, no, Tom Brady. I mean, I don't know if have the Bucks had a better quarterback than Tom Brady. Is he the GOAT of the Bucks too, in terms of quarterbacks?
Man. Yeah,
he took him to. He won a Super Bowl with him. I mean,
yeah, because was Brad Johnson?
Brad Johnson, you gonna put
was that the Super Bowl winner with Gruden?
Yeah, that was it. It was Brad Johnson winning with mostly Warren Sapp and Derek Brooks and those guys. But man, I'm telling you, so that to me was why Nolan Ryan. He's in that great category. We should do that one day. Who can be in the conversation to be the GOAT of multiple organizations for multiple teams? Because LeBron is in that conversation for two, for the Miami Heat and for the Cavs. Not necessarily for the Lakers, but he'll be one of them. But the Lakers got like 7 of those dudes.
Yeah.
The Lakers got a bunch of them. And that's why Kobe wins the greatest Laker debate from a lot of Lakers fan standpoints, because his entire career was with the Lakers, and it wasn't cut short like Magic's career was. Didn't split it like with Wilt and Kareem with other teams. LeBron has been with other teams. He's just known as a Laker forever, a Laker all the way through. So yeah, that matters. I think if you're talking about, to me, in my definition, that would matter about being the greatest ever for a team. But there are exceptions, and I think like Tom Brady may be the exception, and who knows, Nolan Ryan may be the exception.
Yeah, but that's also, it's like Adrian Beltre, who came to the Rangers and then stayed with them for the rest of his career, gonna wear that hat going into the Hall of Fame. Guys like that, you go, well, that guy, Hall of Fame career, a lot of it with the Rangers, finished his career, played there a ton. So I think that you got to take a special piece of that, where he's kind of on the flip of it, where like a Pudge Rodriguez spent some time and then went away for a while. And I think he came back at the end of his career as well. But so guys that you say, well, they didn't finish their career here, but then they're still, they're a Ranger for life. Those questions, but yeah, it's and it's that's why we ask you guys, and we put it up there. It's online on you can get it on X right now. You can go on the text line and tell us what you think. Well, we'll keep listening to you guys.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's good stuff. My man Patrick's also going to give you the Horn headlines of the day. That'll be coming up here momentarily. We'll go behind the burnt orange curtain next segment, talk about some of these spring practice nuggets that my friends over at On Texas Football have thrown out there. We'll hear from Quinn Ewers, a couple of clips of audio from Quinn Ewers, and there actually are reports that Quinn was asked about the receivers and asked to describe something unique about all the receivers. I thought it was an interesting response that he had. So we'll go behind the burnt orange curtain, talk to Texas spring football next segment. We're going to talk NCAA tournament here. You got the Sweet 16 starting up today. So we'll talk about who we expect to advance to the Elite Eight, get into that, and also get to some NBA news, notes, and nuggets. Before we do any of that, let's my man Patrick take us away and inform us and educate us with the Horn headlines of the day.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. It was a busy night in the NBA with playoff seeding implications. The Rockets fought for an overtime win over the Oklahoma City Thunder, 132-126, to push their win streak to 10 and keep pressure on the Warriors for the 10 spot. Jalen Green had yet another good scoring night, putting up 37 points, and rookie Amen Thompson added 25 points and 15 rebounds. The Warriors overcame an early ejection of Draymond Green to beat the Magic 101-93 and maintain their one-game lead over the Rockets. The LA Clippers edged the 76ers 108-107 with a late defensive stop to keep a 2-game lead over the Mavs for the 4 seed. Elsewhere in the NBA, the Spurs won their second straight, topping the Jazz 118-111 behind Devin Vassell's 31 points. In college basketball, the round of 16 kicks off tonight in the NCAA tournament with 4 games, including 1 seeds UConn and North Carolina in action against San Diego State and Alabama. Other favorites, Arizona will take on Clemson, and Big 12 champions Iowa State will face Illinois. Texas baseball and softball start their weekend series tonight, allowing for an Easter Sunday off. Longhorn baseball will take on number 23 Kansas State in Manhattan with LeBaron Johnson Jr., Ace Whitehead, and Max Grubbs as your projected starters, while the Texas softball heads to Stillwater to take on number 8 Oklahoma State. Texas had poor luck in Stillwater recently with their last regular season win in March of 2019. And finally, today marks opening day for the MLB season, with games kicking off at 2 p.m. and running till late tonight. The Astros begin their season against the Yankees in Houston at 3:10 p.m. today, and the reigning World Series champion Rangers start off against the Cubs in Arlington at 6:35. That game can be heard with pregame starting at 6 right here on the Horn, and that is your Horn headlines.
All right, let's talk about the NCAA tournament. The ladies for the Lady Longhorns, they will be in action on Friday, facing off against the Lady Zags. They are, I believe Patrick said, a 5+ point favorite against the Zags, but it will be a game play. I believe that game is in Portland.
Yes.
So the Zags in the Pacific Northwest, where I am right now, all right, everybody in this damn region is a Zags fan, pretty much. So that will be a hostile environment for the Longhorns. There's no doubt about it. Zags fans travel really well. So do Longhorns, but the Zags they dominate this region. So that it'll be a ruckus road environment for the ladies, and also the ladies for Texas. They'll be playing on Friday. But of course, as we know, the ladies have faced a lot of adversity this year, so no big deal for them. They're used to it. But that will be another challenge. But we know Vic Schaefer will have the ladies ready to play. He's a master motivator. So I'm excited to watch the ladies perform. But that'll be on Friday. And by the way, we're off on Friday. Got to throw that out there too. We're off for Good Friday. So we're cramming a lot of our Friday stuff, a lot of the predictions on the tournament, a lot of our conversation about the weekend. We're cramming it into a Thursday show because we're going to be off on Friday. So I'm happy about that. But of course, we won't be able to talk to you guys on Friday, make any of those predictions. So we're cramming a lot into today's show. All right, let's talk NCAA tournament. You got 4 1 seeds, all the 1 seeds, all the 2 seeds advance to the Sweet 16. That is rare. I got a factoid here that is only the 5th. This is only the 5th time that has happened in NCAA, the modern NCAA tournament history since they expanded to 64 teams. All 4 number 1 seeds, all 4 number 2 seeds. The last time that happened, all of them advanced to the Sweet 16. I should say the last time that happened was 2019. The other 3 times were 2009, 1995, and 1989. 3 out of those 4 seasons, though, I will say the number 1 seed did win the whole thing. 3 out of the 4 seasons, a number 1 seed won the whole thing when all 4 number 1 and number 2 seeds advanced to the Sweet 16. We know they call it March Madness for a reason, Patrick. So there will be some chaos. There will be madness of these matchups where that involve a 1 seed or a 2 seed. Which one of them are most likely to fall and not advance to the Elite 8? Right now, my pick is probably Iowa State as the one of those 1 and 2 seeds most likely to not advance, most likely to fall and lose in the Sweet 16. They're playing Illinois, which is a 3 seed. So, I mean, that's a really, really tight matchup. The other one I see of the 1 and 2 seeds, I actually see all the 1 seeds advancing, but anything could happen because it's madness. I think Tennessee. I'll take Creighton. If I'm picking madness, there will likely be an upset. No way all the 1 seeds and all the 2 seeds are going to advance to the Elite 8. There's no way that's going to happen. The statistical probability, just the odds are against it. I would say Tennessee will be the other high seed or highly ranked seed, 1 or 2 seed that is most likely to lose in the Sweet 16. So those are my 2 picks. What say you about what 1 and 2 seeds are most likely to lose in the Sweet 16 and not advance?
I agree with you on both those for sure. Tennessee, they had their struggles against the Texas team that played good defense, but had a ton of struggles offensively that, if this Creighton team can hit their shots, which I think they will be able to play a little bit better offense, they'll be able to see. We'll see if Dalton Knecht can get going in this game. If Ziegler can get going in this game, they'll make it a game. But it is definitely something that I think they have a real good shot to get an upset in this matchup. I'm curious to see NC State against Marquette, see if we get a true Cinderella, number 11 NC State. There is a little bit of a question because they did, they beat a Texas Tech team that was a pretty good team, but beatable, and NC State's been really, really hot. Then they beat an Oakland team. Oakland was not necessarily a team that, anybody saw getting past the first round. That was a big upset for them over Kentucky. So they were able to get it in the second round. However, that means a pretty easy path for NC State to get there against Marquette. Marquette had a little bit of struggles. We know that Shaka Smart has had issues in the tournament in previous years, so that will be an interesting one to watch as well. And then Duke versus Houston. Duke just has a ton of experience there, and Houston's a good team, but they just haven't had that consistent star power. I know we had someone on the text line ask earlier why I said that Houston didn't have a star, and the reason is LJ Sheed can play really well at points. He has not been consistent at all so far at the end of the season. He hasn't been consistent in the tournament. He missed 5 threes. He was 0 for 5 from 3 in the game in the round of 32. So that's the reason, is because they just consistently haven't been able to put it up. And with the injuries that they've had, with the foul trouble they've been getting into, as the refs have not been calling it the same way they've been getting the calls in the Big 12, where Houston gets a little bit more respect in the Big 12. These are officials that didn't call Houston all season long, so they are calling a couple more fouls and they play physical. If they start to call it a little bit tighter, it's going to favor Duke a lot. And that's where Filipowski, who's a big man, who's going to have more size against this Houston team, it's just going to be a hard matchup for Houston if Sheed and Cryer don't shoot a high percentage against this Duke team.
Well, that's a good point there. Yeah, I mean, this is when the stars shine brightest, right? This is it. Sweet 16. If you do have that star power, this is when you want to see those guys really have their breakout performances. And yeah, I mean, I'm just watching Tennessee. I think I got some recency bias just watching them versus Texas and watching how, and I probably don't give enough credit to the Texas defense, but just watching how inept they can be offensively. That to me, I guess the 3-2 matchups, which I guess that's the easy way to go with the question that I asked, which one of these are most likely to lose and not advance to the Sweet 16 of the 1 and the 2 seeds. I took the 2 and the 3 matchups, but I really do think those are the ones that are most likely to fall. All the 1 seeds, those matchups, man, you brought up the U of H one against Duke. I like what the points you made about Houston. That could happen. But man, I think I'm pretty confident the 1 seeds, they look like they have such favorable matchups. Bama versus North Carolina. I like North Carolina. The Purdue Zags matchup. But you're right there. Houston Duke matchup, that could come down to it. But I like the way Houston plays. I like their brand of basketball. It is a tough brand of basketball that I think that will take them far in the tournament. So I'll still take Houston to win that. I'll take the 1 seeds to advance. I'll take 2 of the 2 seeds to go down in the Sweet 16. There you go.
Yeah, no, and I mean, and I'll say, personally, I do want to see that Arizona North Carolina matchup, just in the fact that would be a really fun matchup because you have Caleb Love, who transferred off of that North Carolina team last year, got a lot of flack for their poor performance last season, and now he is having his best year yet playing for Arizona, leading that team. That'd be a really fun matchup to see him versus his former team.
Yeah, no, you could have some really good storylines there in the Elite 8 matchups, depending on who advances. So, I think it'll be entertaining games. I think it'll be really competitive. But like I said, I do think it'll be pretty chalky when you get to Elite 8, considering you got so many, all the 1 seeds and all the 2 seeds that advanced. All right, good tournament conversation. We'll talk a little bit more about it on today's show a little bit later in the show. But let's talk about the NBA. I know you're probably one of the biggest NBA fans I know, Patrick. You watch a lot of NBA. You watch a ton of the games. You have the NBA Pass, so you're watching not just the local regional stuff, but you're watching the teams nationally. The Mavs right now seem to be one of the hottest teams in the NBA. The Rockets, by the way, I'm not disrespecting my Rockets. I brought this up yesterday for the Rockets fans out there. Rockets have won 10 straight now, and in that during that streak, and by the way, in the month of March now, they're 12-1 in the month of March, which is just unbelievable. So they're the hottest team right now in the month of March, and during that time span, their offensive rating is first in the NBA. 3rd in defensive rating during that time span, 2nd in net rating, 3rd in fast break points, the lowest turnover rate in the NBA, 2nd in steals, and they lead the NBA in pace during that time period. So I want to give them props, trust me, and they are battling for the play-in, and it's a really great story. We brought it up yesterday. The Mavs have won 5 straight, and the Mavs are in a better position to contend for a championship. The Rockets are going to try to contend for a postseason berth, which would be great. There's a lot of growth for them, and like I said, their story is really, really compelling what they're doing in March. But if you're looking at the Mavs, we're talking about a team that can make some noise and actually compete for the championship this year, or at least to get to the Western Conference Finals. Now, they're only the 6th seed right now, but they're trending in the right direction. Here, if you go look at it lately, the Mavs, I believe, tied with the Lakers for the 2nd longest winning streak right now in the West at 5 games. But it's been
Behind
more
the Rockets.
about tied with the Lakers. I said,
Yeah,
sorry,
behind the
tied with
Rockets. The Rockets have a 10-game win
Yes.
streak. Yeah.
Yes. It's like, I mean,
Yeah,
sorry,
sorry.
but then in terms of their 5-game win streak, I believe
Yes.
they're tied with the Lakers. So my bad if I got that wrong. But I acknowledge that the Rockets have a 10-game win streak. But talking about the Mavs right now, you go look at it in the last 23 games, they're 17-6. Tied for 3rd in offensive rating during that time span, 7th in defensive rating, number 3 overall net rating. They're 9-1 in their last 10 games, so they're picking up the pace a little bit. And they are right now ranked 2nd in defensive rating during the last 10 games. So they're starting to find their defensive identity, which is scary. We knew they could score. Luka, he's a elite creator, leading the NBA in scoring. I think he's like 3rd in assists. We know that Kyrie can close, Kyrie can create. So the offense wasn't ever a question. The question was whether they could live up to the defensive identity that Jason Kidd envisioned for the team. I don't know if they're there yet, but this is a team that's now playing some of their best basketball, Patrick. And I think that right now the Mavs are a scary team. They are, I think, 2.5 games out of a top 4 seed in the West. They're trending, they're playing a lot more confidently in terms of as a team. And one of the things that worries you about the Mavs is, they play a lot of, obviously there's a high usage rate for Luka, and Luka can get into times playing some hero ball. And the Mavs are getting away from that a little bit. I saw this stat that the Mavs they had in that their recent win over the Kings. They had 34 assists in that game. That was the 7th time since the NBA All-Star break that they had 30-plus assists in a game. And they've actually, since the month of March, they've had 6 30-plus assist games in the month of March, 7 since the All-Star break. So obviously they're getting much better at, sharing the basketball, making the extra pass. Those are some scary things for the rest of the NBA. If the Mavs learn how to play defense and they learn how to make the extra pass and share the basketball a little bit better and take some of the burden off of Luka, such historically high usage rates, playing a lot of hero ball.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple of pieces in there, and we'll see when Josh Green comes back from injury. But Derek Jones Jr. being able to be that wing defender and then hit a couple threes, that's been a big piece for them because they've always been a team that basically wanted 3-and-D guys outside of Luka and Kyrie. That's kind of what the build of this team is supposed to be. But Daniel Gafford has added a different element where he's able to run the pick and roll with such ability and precision that he's been able to run this over and over again, opening up so many more pieces that normally people are expecting them to go to the 3-point lane. But now Gafford can just roll off of that. They're doubling onto Luka, then Gafford gets the easy 2. But now, so they're stopping to double off of Gafford so much because he hit, I think, like 15, 16 in a row off that pick and roll. So they had to stop going. They had to stop doubling off him and rolling off and trying to double team Luka Doncic. It ends up where now it just opens up the court more and more for Luka to be able to make the passes that he can make. You throw in Dante Exum coming back from injury, PJ Washington, his length and size, the ability of this team now to get their hand up, shut down passing lanes, and then on the other end, hit those threes. The question is, can they stay hot from 3? And they're not necessarily hot from 3, but they're shooting a good enough percentage. That's the question. When it gets to playoffs, things get tighter. The pressure amps up. Can this Mavs team, the guys that are below Kyrie and Luka, can their game continue to play at a high level?
No, it's a great point. Brian Windhorst does a podcast with Tim McMahon. It's actually, I forget the name of it.
It's the Hoops Collective.
Hoops Collective. Thank you very much.
Yes.
You're the Hoops man, so and he started out the podcast talking about the Mavs. They talk about a lot of NBA stuff, but he was talking about the Mavs at the beginning of it. And here's what's kind of his opening statement of the podcast. And he talks about how it's not just, locally here that we're watching the Mavs and seeing how dangerous they can be. He says this is something now that is becoming the opinion of a lot of folks around the league.
Dallas is a team that, as I talk to people in the league, I talk to coaches, talk to scouts, they'll several different times in the last 7 to 10 days, people have been like, we just played Dallas and man, they're scary. Or I just saw Dallas and man, they look good. You hear it once, you hear it twice. He's like, okay, yeah, I've heard that before. But Dallas is starting to show some teeth. I know defensively we've talked about them, but starting to show some teeth. And in a second, we're going to talk about the West standings.
Mm-hmm.
But the Mavericks situation is quite interesting and getting more so as they take this big game in Sac.
All right, there you go. I heard Tim Legler say something very similar. Tim Legler is now big on the Mavs bandwagon, and he's talked about how he thinks they can make the Western Conference Finals if they can avoid basically Denver too early in the bracket. If they can avoid Denver too early in the bracket, they can make the Western Conference Finals. If they see Denver too early, then they're not going to beat Denver. But any other team in the West, I think they got a shot.
They do.
I mean, Denver's the only team where they got no shot in the playoffs against Denver.
And Denver, they do have a shot against Denver because it is, it's basketball and it's there. But yeah, they're very much, their odds are lower in that one. But I think there's a point too. If you look at this team last year, just one example of what the difference is between last year and this year is Maxi Kleba, where Maxi Kleba was basically the only guy trying to get rebounds, the only guy playing inside with any ability. Dwight Powell was your other center, and he was just not effective, and any Mavs fan will tell you that. But you saw Maxi Kleba having to play big minutes. He's now in a position that is actually his position, playing power forward more. He can play off the ball a little bit more. He doesn't necessarily have to be a guy trying to rim protect, which has helped his defense. It helps him offensively because he can stand out and he's not being guarded by another center where he doesn't necessarily have the threat of the drive so much. So he was supposed to be a three-point shooter, but he had guys that were bigger than him on him. But so just that little different mismatch and being able to have the guys in Derek Lively, who they drafted, who's worked out pretty well, but then Gafford with just a little bit more experience, those two guys being able to kind of share minutes right now has really helped this team spread the ball out a little bit more, not allow the centers to roam out where you want to be able to get the center to roam out so Kyrie and Luka can get to the paint, but you don't necessarily want them if they're going to be able to still sit off of a guy shooting the threes and then be able to get out on him. They were just able to guard the three too well last season when other guys were driving in the paint. It's been a big help. You're just waiting for the other shoe to fall because you know what the talent is on the team. But right now they're playing at a high level, and it's about the right time of the season. You've got a couple weeks left, and then you'll be in the playoffs. So if they can keep it going, they're getting hot at the right time. But yeah, you just don't want to run that Denver series because that Denver team is going to go inside, and Jokic will really take that advantage of Gafford and Lively, who've been playing well, and just put it on them for the rest of the series.
Agreed. Yeah. I said I didn't mean to be doom and gloom versus Denver, but they just got too many ways to win, and they got an unstoppable force, just like you do with Luka. But they got one who's already won championships and already won MVPs. But I do think Luka should win the MVP. I've been on that bandwagon for a while. I do think if they can take that fourth seed in the West, they're 2.5 games out, they can take it, then he'll get more of a serious consideration for the MVP. Right now, he's leading the NBA in scoring, third in assists. That was my take at the beginning of the season, and Wemby winning Defensive Player of the Year. I think both of them still are on course to win those awards. But Luka's got some work to do. He's got some winning to do, basically. I don't know if Wemby can win in terms of getting the award, but all the stats right now for Wemby are just cartoonish, showing how much he is, how much of a difference maker he is defensively, and how much he is separated from the rest of the candidates for Defensive Player of the Year. If they don't give it to him, they'll basically be declaring that they don't give Defensive Player of the Year awards to players on losing teams. That's basically what they would be declaring, because he's far and away easily the best candidate for Defensive Player of the Year.
It's the stats for what you see in today's NBA, and that doesn't even include, if you watch the games, how many times people drive to the basket and then pull the ball and turn around just because he's standing there, just because it's like, what's the point of going up for this? But his ability so far this season and the stats in limited minutes, where he was on a minutes restriction for a lot of early in the season. They were trying him at different positions. They were trying him. Zach Collins started at the 5 for most of the beginning of the season. When you look at what this could be and progress to and the numbers he's already putting up, I think he's still the front runner for it. I keep hearing people talk about it, and most of the time when you hear people talk about it, everyone says, I would vote for him, but I don't think he'll win. I don't hear too many people saying I wouldn't vote for him. So I don't know who the people are that are not going to vote for him. I'm sure there are. I'm sure there's plenty of them.
Yeah,
Definitely
but
will
we will
because Bill
see.
Simmons said he wouldn't. Bill Simmons said I wouldn't do it because he's got to. He needs to be on the. It's not. He said it's not resulting in wins. His impact is not resulting in wins, which I get that. But dude, have you watched him? Just watch him.
Yeah, Bill Simmons also has a lot of crazy takes, and I love some of them, but a lot of them are, I don't.
The man's got to be different. Yeah, I like he thinks outside the box all the time. It's good for conversation.
I like Bill Simmons, but
yeah. Now, you're a basketball guy, so if you like him, then that says a lot because he's a basketball guy too. All right, good conversation there about hoops. Let's talk some Texas football when we come back. We'll go behind the burn orange curtain on the other side. We'll talk Texas football. Got some spring nuggets for you from our friends over at On Texas Football, and also got some sound from my friends over at K-View about Quinn Ewers and his maturity. So we'll get into all of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming right back on the Horn.
All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to go behind the burn on curtain, talk some Texas football. A couple of nuggets here. Okay, so let's talk about Quinn Ewers. If we can get to the On Texas Football nuggets, we will. In case we don't, go to ontexasfootball.com. They got you caught up on all of the practice reports, all of the info you need to know from yesterday's practice and the media window. So you can go to the On Texas YouTube channel. Just go to ontexasfootball.com. And I'll give you some of those nuggets if we have some time here. But Quinn Ewers, we got a piece of audio we're going to play from our friends over at KView of Quinn Ewers talking about coming back to school, and really the thought process behind it for him and the benefits of it actually for him too. But Quinn was asked by the media, I got this from my man Bobby Burden, to describe the receivers, just to give a little brief description of the receivers. And he was reluctant at first. I don't think he wanted to individually describe all the receivers and then maybe compliment one guy over the other, that kind of stuff. So I think he just wanted to make sure that he was being fair to all the guys, but he ended up doing it because they asked him over and over again, hey man, can you give us a description of the receivers? And when he was talking about Isaiah Bond, he said explosive. When he was talking about Jonte Cook, he said he knows the offense, basically familiarity with the offense, knows the offense better than everybody. When he was talking about Matthew Golden, he said soft hands. When he was talking about DeAndre Moore, which matter of fact, we'll hear from Quinn talking about DeAndre Moore. He's one of the biggest and pleasant surprises of the spring practice so far, starting in that slot. When he was asked about DeAndre Moore, he says, gonna be a player. Like he's gonna be a player. Patrick, which one of these description is most complimentary in your opinion? That he's called Isaiah Bond explosive, that he calls Jonte, that he said Jonte Cook knows the offense really well, because maybe that means, hey man, this guy's gonna always be in the right spot. Maybe Matthew Golden, he said, hey, soft hands, which means the guy doesn't really drop anything, very reliable. Or DeAndre Moore, he says, gonna be a player. Which one is the biggest compliment in your opinion?
I mean, he did a good job because he did
a good job.
He did a good job
out there.
I think I'm going to say DeAndre Moore in the fact that I don't think that would have been the one that you would have necessarily gone with. Okay, well, he's going to sit, but I think he basically is lending that he maybe has a really good rapport with DeAndre Moore. That he feels that he's exceeding expectations. Whereas we knew Isaiah Bond was explosive. We knew Matthew Golden had soft hands. We knew that Jonte Cook, we figured Jonte Cook would know the playbook. So I think it was a line of DeAndre Moore. I think that's one of those things where you just go, I think it's the most surprising one of, it feels like he's saying he's overachieving right now.
Yeah, like he surprised me.
Yeah.
Like this guy surprised even me.
This
like,
dude's showing up ready to go.
He's going to be a player, man. This guy, I that's a good point about, I think that's kind of, if you're reading between the lines of what that description is, going to be a player. It's like, no, this guy, I was surprised at how good he was when he came out there. He looks like he belongs. The one that's, I think, the least complimentary is the Jonte Cook.
Yeah.
Because he knows, it's like saying he's got a good personality. Like, is she hot? She's funny. She's got a great personality. I was like, no, I didn't ask you to ask you, was she hot? And did she have a great body? Is she cute? No, you didn't say that. You went straight to he knows the offense. Like, hey, Isaiah Bond's explosive. Matthew Golden's got those soft hands.
Jonte Cook has been here.
Exactly. I'm like, come on, man, give me something else better than knows the offense. Come on. So I don't think, I'm not reading too deep into it.
I think what he does mean
by it's at least complimentary.
Yeah, it is. And I think what he means by that is they can walk in and talk about the playbook and talk about what to do. And he has a further understanding of all these facets of it and what he's supposed to be doing without the ball and all of that. That I can believe, because if we talk about who knew the playbook really well, you could say Jordan Whittington last year was a guy who really knew the playbook well and knew where to be in every possession and knew what to do and finish his routes and how to be that. So it can be a compliment. It can also not be one, and that's why it comes across.
It can be a compliment. It's just it's the least complimentary compliment you give someone. It's like, yeah, he knows the offense. It's like, well, yeah, but you're right. That matters. It does. It's important. That means you're going to be where you're supposed to be. He doesn't have to teach and instruct you on every route, but knows the landmarks and the timing.
Yes.
But like I said, it's just like when somebody asks you, is she hot? And you go, well, she's funny and she's got a great personality. It's like, well, okay, well, that's not the question I asked you, though. And there you go. I think that's what Jonte Cook, I think, is going to be really good. I think he's going to end up being the second leading receiver on the team. Okay, let's get to the Quinn Ewers sound. Actually, we got Quinn Ewers audio here. Quinn Ewers was asked about his decision to come back to school. His decision now has led to him being the unquestioned leader of this team. So here's Quinn talking about that decision, but also talking about now the new role that he's been thrust into.
The main thing for me was just getting more experience. You know, I had some people put together a pretty good chart on, obviously the more you play and the more experience you have, the better you end up playing and succeeding in the NFL. And I just wanted to put myself in a better spot to be able to succeed at a high level once I, hopefully get there. So just more experience, and then, I feel like I've been rushing my entire life. So just take a year, slow it down, and not rush things. Skip my senior year, that went by fast. Was at Ohio State for a semester or so, that all went by fast also. So just take my time throughout the whole process, and enjoy being here, just being present and not looking too far forward.
What challenges did you have to go through personally to get to that headspace?
Yeah, it's hard because this is what you dream of. Since I was a kid, I always wanted to play in the NFL and succeed at a high level in the NFL. And to get to that point, obviously I think it was just better for me to just stay another year and just enjoy it.
All right, there's Quinn, and I like that he mentioned his senior year. This is something that we talked about over at On Texas Football. Missing his senior year and continuing to fast track his career. This guy that's known as a prodigy, highest rated recruit in modern recruiting history at the quarterback position. So he has been fast tracked, and you understand why. And NIL had a lot to do with that, but he missed his senior year, and I'm not saying that he missed out on development. Because of that, like physical development, because when you have a prodigy, you can skip them up a grade, and that's what happens, right? So they can be with other intellectual peers, right? People who are on their level, which will help push them academically and intellectually. And the same thing with Quinn. That's why Quinn left high school for the NIL too, but also because he wanted to expedite his development. But one thing that he could not expedite during that process was not necessarily the physical development, which we know that's what he was trying to do, right? To put himself on the fast track physically. It was the leadership development that he missed out on. When you become a senior, everybody knows that you've been a senior on the team. You're a natural leader as a senior, especially at the quarterback position. It's a natural leadership position. So you're going to be the ones that's organizing the offseason. You're going to be ones holding your teammates accountable. You're going to be the one who is considered the field general, delivering the messages from the coaching staff to the players. You're going to be motivating your players. That vocal leadership that he's uncomfortable with, that he just got comfortable with, that is something he had worked on his senior year. He'd have worked on his leadership style. What is my leadership style? Well, he hadn't had a chance to really be in a position to practice a leadership style. He would have did that as a senior. And at a place like, at South Lake Carroll, we're talking about a football community. So not only would he have been a leader in the locker room, all right, and a leader on campus at Hughes High School, he'd have been a leader in that community. All right. And then he'd have learned the obligations of being the face of a program, the face of a community where you are being tugged in different ways for charitable causes. And the fans want some of your time too, but you also got to be the guy that spends time with players in the locker room. The coaches need your time. And I think that comment about him being present is about how there's a lot of people pulling him in different directions. And of course, when you're the face of the program at Texas, everybody's going to want some of your time. You got to do this. You got a media obligation. You got to do that. You got to do that. And you got to get your practice time in. You got to get your film in. There's a lot of things happening. You got to get your quality time with your players. You got to get your continuity and chemistry with your wide receivers. That's all extra time on top of the practice, on top of going to school. So I think he's talking about, I'm just going to be present. I can't be I can't be at one event or accomplishing one task while thinking about another one, because then I am not wholly committed and dedicated to the moment. And I think that's kind of what he's talking about. So I think it just shows a lot of maturity on his, that answer showed a lot of maturity on his behalf. And I think now you're starting to see that leadership style that he's cultivating. Now you're starting to see it come to fruition.
Yeah, I mean, it's, when you try and jump up a grade, you're going to be a little less mature than everybody else. I think he was sitting back, and a lot of times kind of waiting for someone else to take the lead and tell him what to do. And he was being a good soldier, but to be the quarterback at Texas, you have to be the leader. You have to be. And last year we saw the first growth into that. And I think now he's realizing more and more, as you said, that being present part of it and being somebody that can sit in a moment, understand it, really listen to what your teammates telling you, really listen to what the problem is, try and find a solution for it, and not react emotionally to it, not shy away from those types of things, because you're going to be dealing with all those different personalities in a locker room. And it can be real easy to step back from, two wide receivers arguing over who's going to get the more reps or who's the better guy. And you could sit back and say, well, I'm not going to touch that one and whatever else, not realizing that they're watching you not be a part of it.
Inaction.
And then when you come up to them and say, I need this out of you, like, well, where were you when I needed you? Where were you in that guy? So just being able to be present in a locker room and see what other guys need, see the guy whose head is down and go over and talk to him and get his head back up. Those pieces of leadership to get the ship right, and starting in spring, starting and running the off-season drills that we saw the video and pictures of him running those drills when coaches weren't allowed to run them. That stuff, that I think is taking a little bit of time. But again, each offseason, he's shown a lot of growth. And I think that's, he went in, and whoever he's talking to, whether, I'm sure there's sports psychologists and, and mentors and everybody else he's working with over the offseason, has got him in a headspace where he's ready to go and attack this season.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. So we got some other pieces of audio. We'll play those in the 9 o'clock a little bit later on. We'll find some time to play those other pieces of audio from Quinn talking about DeAndre Moore, and also talking about the weight that he's put on. He's put on some weight because I think the number one criticism of Quinn's game is actually not really his game. It's his durability or lack thereof. He hadn't played an entire season of football since his sophomore year of high school, and that's becoming more and more of a negative data point against him. So making it through this entire season is going to be big for Quinn, because that's what scouts want to see. And if he's going to do that, he's got to make sure he's got that armor, not just the pads, the armor, the physical armor. He's talking about that. So we'll get to that audio a little bit later on. Coming up on the other side, we'll get into off the record, wacky, crazy stories from the sports world and beyond. This is the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers, coming right back on the Horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get to time to get to off the record. Excuse me. We'll get to Rod Tran a little bit later on the show. Time to get to off the record here. I got a couple of pieces of audio that I think we have time for. The first one is a piece of audio of Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders went on a podcast. And on the podcast, he was talking about Shadur Sanders and talking about his great cornerback / wide receiver Travis Hunter and their draft prospects. And he revealed potentially a draft strategy, at least for Shadur Sanders, on this podcast. Here's the audio of Coach Prime. I believe this podcast is it's the weekly podcast game, millions worth of game. So I'm sure you've heard of it. If not, you can go check it out. I think it might be a part of the Barstool family. That's where I got it from. But here's Coach Prime on this podcast. He was asked about Shadur Sanders and Travis Hunter. Listen to what he has to say.
Where do you predict Shadur and Travis going in the draft?
Top 4. Ooh, that's pretty beautiful. Anywhere from 1 through 4. One of them is going to be 1.
That's what I'm talking about.
One of them is going to be
speaking into existence.
And the latter one would not go behind 4. Now, all this is subjective because I know where I want them to go. And let's not forget Shallow, okay? But I know where I want them to go. So there's certain cities that ain't going to happen.
Okay, you on point.
It's going to be it's going to be an Eli.
He's claiming that if Shadur Sanders, and I don't know if he can control Travis Hunter. Shadur Sanders is his son, so he has more influence on Shadur. But he's basically claiming if some team that has a bad track record and a bad history of developing quarterbacks, or they're just organizational dysfunction, that he may decide that he's going to pull an Eli. By the way, Deion Sanders, when he came out, he told several teams, "Don't draft me, because I'm going to go play baseball and not play for you. Yep. So don't draft me." And so he was able to maneuver his way to where he wanted to go in the draft. Eli Manning famously had done that as well. Ooh, Shadur Sanders. Do we think that's possible? This could go along with the conspiracy theory that Jerry Jones is going to fire Mike McCarthy and let Dak Prescott walk. Draft Shadur Sanders after he hires Deion Sanders as his head coach, and then maybe they can finagle their way to Dallas somehow. What are your thoughts about what Deion had to say about pulling an Eli?
I don't think Shadur is that guy yet. I think he's a good player. He'll get drafted, but I don't know if he's I can pick my number 1 pick guy yet. You have to have a little bit more success than he's had to be able to be that guy. So, you may be able to pick, because you may tell a bunch of these teams, I'm not going to go play for you, and then you'll be a 2nd round pick somewhere. But if you're going to be a top 4 pick, I don't know if he's got that kind of clout to be able to do that.
It's like John Elway stuff.
But I think it's also, this is still Deion being Deion and Deion recruiting. Well, I'm going to have 2 top 4 picks in the draft from Colorado. And so he's still trying to sell the image and sell all of it. And he's still in the phase of it's all still there for the taking. And then once the pieces start to fall, whichever way they do, whether he's right and he is able to get Colorado and they're competing in the Big 12 and they're competing for Big 12 championships in the next 2 years, then he can be right on that. And if he's, if Shadur and Travis Hunter pull themselves up and they're both projected top 5 picks, then, he proves that. But if Colorado doesn't get to have a winning season again this season, and Shadur and Travis Hunter are not, they're both 1st rounders, but not there, that's when the pieces start to fall. And, he'll still be able to talk, but then it'll be more, he won't be able to walk around and say, everything I touch turns to gold. Say, no, everything you touch turns to silver. Still very nice, but it's not quite gold.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. It's just, Deion. Deion keeps it interesting.
He does.
The free media and free publicity that you get for Deion. I said it when they hired him. I was like, it's going to be worth it, even if he fails, because you're going to get so much free media, which means your application is going to going to shoot through the roof in terms of application numbers, which has already happened. You're going to make so much money off merchandising, which has already happened. Your NIL is going to go through the roof, which has already happened. And your recruiting is going to be gangbusters, which has already happened. So even if he fails miserably, he's going to fail your program forward.
Yep.
So that's why it was a brilliant hire. Okay. Enough Deion discussion. Real quick, did you see the Caleb Williams blowback on social media after he was spotted courtside at the USC women's tournament game? I guess people were upset. People on the internet are always upset about something, but they were highly critical of his fashion accessories. The best way to say it, he had a pink phone.
Okay.
He had a pink clutch purse with him, and his nails were painted pink. And so a lot of people were highly critical of, the accessories, I guess he had, and him painting. Remember, he paints his nails all the time. He paints his nails even before football games. He usually has some message on his painted nails.
Yeah.
At one point, I think it was like F Utah or something like that. So it's not something new, but I guess the pink fingernail polish is something new. But I don't know, he got a lot of blowback apparently just from.
He got blowback from the people he
accessories.
wanted to get a blowback from.
So you think he did this on purpose, wearing the pink?
I don't think he walked out of the house with all the pink and went. I don't think he walked out and went, man, I bet old white conservatives are going to love this. I think he knew what the deal was. He knows there's a group of people that are not going to like it.
So the LGBTQ plus community, they're like, hell yeah, Caleb's our guy now. Is this what's going on?
I mean, I think he knew he was going to piss some people off, and that's fine. And
maybe he wants to be maybe he wants to appeal to another mass demographic.
Well, I think he wants to be. I think he wants to be controversial. He wants to be talked about. He wants to be the guy. And it's very rare that the guy is somebody with nothing about them. That is just he just goes in there and it's like there's not really a blue collar where that's the guy in today's world. And so he knows what he's doing. I'm sure they sent out and they said, look, you want to make more money in endorsements? Go paint your fingernails and wear pink everything, and you'll be the hottest name, and all these people are going to pay you $10 million more because you're going to be that much more famous. You go make more money. Whether you're good at football or not, if people are talking about you, you'll be in there for a little bit.
Hey, you can turn fame into fortune. You can turn fame into fortune, or you can turn shame into fame and then turn that fame into fortune. So it doesn't really matter which way you do it. The Kardashians have shown us there is a blueprint from shame to fame to fortune. All right, we come back. We got to get to the break here. We come back. We'll get into some NFL news, notes, and nuggets on the other side, including Cowboys discussion. If Dak Prescott is indeed going to play out the last year on his deal with the Cowboys and become a free agent, who's going to be in the Dak Prescott sweepstakes? We'll discuss that on the other side, right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers right here on the Horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. Some of you sitting in traffic right now are having a miserable experience. Now, everybody hates traffic, but some of you hate traffic and also hate the car that you're driving because it's a little run down, or because it's old, or because it's something that doesn't fit your lifestyle anymore. Maybe it's too small. Maybe you need to downsize. Maybe it's too big. Maybe you just want a new car because the car you're driving has got a lot of issues, right? You don't want to put more money into an aging automobile. My friends at Apple Leasing, they are, folks, right now, they're going to be your savior. If you want a new car of any kind, they can get you the price you want, the payment you want on the car that you want. All it takes is one phone call from you or one click on Apple Leasing's website, and you'll get a quote on any make or model vehicle that you want. So if you're sitting in traffic right now thinking about getting a new car, reach out to my friends over at Apple Leasing. They can improve your lifestyle. They can improve your traffic experience just by giving you a car that you enjoy. Therefore, yeah, you might still hate traffic, but at least you won't hate the car that you're in while you're in traffic. Apple Leasing has the ability to put you in any make or model vehicle that you want. They understand that your time is valuable, time is money. They're going to save you both. They're going to save you time, save you money, and find you tremendous value. The pros at Apple Leasing can help you get the price you want, the payment you want on the car you want. They can even give you an estimate on the value of your trade-in right over the phone. They have what they call a simple interest easy lease, which makes things, well, simple and easy. It's self-explanatory. It's going to give you more flexibility, which is going to give you more possibilities and options to help you find the vehicle that fits you best, but more importantly, the vehicle that fits your budget best. Inflation is everywhere. Everything seems overpriced these days. That's why leasing makes more sense than ever. You're only paying for the part of the car you're actually using. So give Apple Leasing a call today, 512-346-9977. That's 512-346-9977, and let them see how much money they can save you. They get all the same discounts and all the same incentives that the dealers do, except my friends at Apple Leasing, they pass those savings on to you. So give them a call, 512-346-9977, or visit appleleasing.com. That's appleleasing.com. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a new theme Thursday edition of the Rodcast. That's when Patrick, my co-host and the Idealionaire on the show, comes up with musically themed days of the week, and one of them is New Theme Thursday, and this theme is dedicated to the national opening day for Major League Baseball. We know internationally they had pretty much an opening day internationally with the Dodgers and the Padres playing overseas, but now nationally we all get to enjoy opening day. We are the official station for the Rangers, so it is apropos that my man Patrick devote and dedicate New Theme Thursday to baseball. So all the songs are honoring and having and actually are mentioning baseball of some kind. How is this song mentioning baseball? I tried to listen for it early on.
This is Sam and Dave called "Knock It Out of the Park." And basically, they're not really,
gotcha.
but they're using a bunch of baseball wordplay
references
to talk about dating women and all that.
Very punny. Okay,
yes,
see, there
that
you
is.
go.
But yeah, it's a decent set. Sam and Dave, always good.
That's very creative. That's very creative there. I like that. Knock it out of the park. Okay, yeah. I guess there you can be really. And depending on, I guess, how vulgar you want to get. But yeah, you can, there are a lot of references you can make. Yeah, a lot of puns.
But we also say the most common reference of how far you got with a girl is baseball.
Third baseball, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. First base, second base. I mean,
we know that everybody's got a different. Changed. Yes, they've changed.
Everybody's got a different definition of what first and second and third base is, though.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, like that's the thing. I think we all agree what a home run is.
Yeah, but I think now in the world we live in, they're like, well, I got a grand slam. It was into the water outside.
That is true. Yeah, that might have changed too. Honestly, the truth is, yes, the home run might have changed too with the young folks because they are wild. So yeah, they are wilder than we were. So yeah, what was a home run for us might just be, I don't know, a triple. The home run for us might be just a triple for them, and then they got something else that's a home run, and something else is a grand slam, and yeah, you're right. Damn, I got a daughter, so I don't want to think about this kind of stuff, but you're right about that.
Yeah, it was always when someone would come in, they'd be like, I got the third base, and you'd be like, you got the third base, and they'd be like, yeah, over the pants petting, and you're like, that's not third base, man.
That's not third base.
Come on, what kind of?
Come on,
someone lied to you. Someone was trying to keep you out of trouble.
That I agree. As I'm saying, I've always had disputes with people about what's first base and what's second base and what's third base. I think it all depends on how experienced you are. The more experienced you become, you start changing the definition of them bases a little bit. You know what I mean? But there you go. That's a good point there, my man Patch. That's why I appreciate all the knowledge we get from him on the musically themed days of the week. And that's what we're talking a lot of baseball. We got a Rangers report coming up here in about 5 minutes. We'll talk some Rangers. We'll hear from Bruce Bochy, as a matter of fact, and hear from Wyatt Langford. We got some audio from those guys to get into our Rangers report. We're also going to talk Cowboys here, the domino effect, the butterfly effect, you will, of the Dak Prescott news that he is expected to play out the last year on his deal, and thus expected to hit free agency in 2025. Well, if he does, who should and who would be in the Dak Prescott sweepstakes? We'll have that conversation here too. We got your Horn headlines. That'll be coming up here momentarily before we get to any of this stuff. So we'll get to that. The big fat poll of the day, also Rangers related. We're talking a lot of Rangers on the show today. We're excited about the Rangers on our airwaves. As a matter of fact, we are the home of the Rangers right here on the Horn, the world champion Rangers, as a matter of fact. So the Rangers are the focus of the big fat poll today. So get the folks caught up on the subject for the big fat poll of the day, Patrick.
Big fat poll of the day today. Who is the greatest Texas Ranger of all time? You guys have thrown out some different ones on the text line. We know we've got some Beltres. We've got some Pudge Rodriguez's, some Nolan Ryan. Some of you guys are going back with some different players. A little bit older than that, not older than Nolan Ryan, but older than Pudge Rodriguez and Adrian Beltre, definitely. So you're going in that route. I still think you could, if you're a Rangers fan, you got to be hoping that the answer will be coming from somebody on this team that has won your first World Series, that somebody stays long enough, has the career that they become that answer. On our poll online, what we've been asking right now, 48% of the vote is Nolan Ryan. 31% Pudge Rodriguez, Beltre coming in with 14%.
So it seems like people are going with the definition that he's the best player to ever play on the team, so he's the greatest.
Yes.
Ranger. It's kind of how maybe some Bucks fans out there think Tom Brady is the greatest Buck of all time for Tampa Bay, even though he was there only a couple of years. Like, hey man, we won the Super Bowl. We had some of our best times when Tom Brady was here, so it was Tom Brady. So maybe they look at it like that. But I mean, you didn't win the World Series when Nolan Ryan was there, but I guess you had good years when Nolan Ryan was there, but you pointed out not his best years.
No, you had
but some
3
good
years. You had 3 years of him. Like the first year he was there, he still made the All-Star team, still got Cy Young votes, still got MVP votes. Second year, he still got an MVP votes. I think 1 or 2 MVP votes his second year. Still did okay, still had a winning record, still led the league in strikeouts his second year. But the third year was starting to fall off a little bit. And then that fourth and fifth year were just injuries and everything else kind of finally catching up. Father Time still undefeated. He fought it off for a long time, but that fourth and fifth year there.
Mid-40s by then, right?
Exactly,
like mid-40s. He was like 44, 45 or something like that.
No, he was way later than most people are still playing, especially at that time. Where
he was ancient.
You know, where
you
that
didn't
was
even take care of your body like they do these days.
Yeah.
Like that was old school.
But that's that. What is that documentary? The Ryan Express. That documentary when he goes, "I don't call it pain, I call it discomfort." And you're like, man, that is a Texas tough boy right there.
That's a hardcore mofo right there, man. But he's got the Nolan Ryan Expressway in Houston. That's how much he's beloved in H-Town. He got the expressway, a freeway named after him. Does he have a freeway named after him down in Dallas?
He should if he does. I'm sure there's stuff named for him there.
I know it's stuff named for him, but does he? We love him more in Houston because we named a freeway after the man. All right, whole damn freeway. He's like, nah, I'm taking the Nolan Ryan Expressway. All right, so you deal with that, Dallas. All right, how much do you love Nolan Ryan? Prove it to us. But he might be one of those rare athletes that's considered the GOAT of 2 different teams and franchises. Because I'm sure a lot of Astros fans are like, oh no, he's the GOAT for the greatest Astro of all time too. All right, so good conversation there with the big fat poll of the day. Before we get to our conversation about Dak Prescott, let's get to our Rangers report here and talk about the Rangers a little bit. We got some audio from Bruce Bochy, got some audio from the phenom Wyatt Langford. Let's get to it.
The Rangers report is brought to you by Texas Truck and Trailer.
Oh, yeah. Rangers report, and the Rangers will be in action today. As a matter of fact, I saw this little factoid, and it shows you how much people, I guess, are looking forward to watching the Rangers, but also their opening day game against the Rangers. Cubs at the Rangers. How about this? The cheapest seat via tickpick.com. This comes from MLB on Fox. $285 is the cheapest seat in the opening day ticket price for the Cubs at the Rangers opening day game. That is the highest, cheapest seat. So it is the highest ticket price for any opening day game in Major League Baseball this year. Isn't that wild?
I mean, you won the World Series. That fan base is ready for it this year. I'm excited for them. It's going to be a fun season for the Rangers. And then you throw in the fact that I think there's people that want to say they were at Wyatt Langford's first game because they know.
Yes.
I think there's people that can say this guy could be an all-time great. Now, we never know, but to get called up that fast, you see what his ability has been in spring training. If they want to look at him and say, I was at his first ever MLB game, I think there's some value to that some of these guys are going to say.
No, that you're right about that. There's no question, Patrick. I'm glad you brought that up because we got some Bruce Bochy sound of him talking about Wyatt Langford. Here's the stat I gave in what the stats segment earlier in the show. So if you look at the ascent of Wyatt Langford and how quickly he was able to make it to an opening day roster, it is amazing. And it's one of the fastest ascents, actually, if you look at it, in the history of Major League Baseball. I pointed this out, and actually the Rangers, they could brag about this in multiple ways. But he is the third fastest player in terms of games played to get to an opening day roster in Major League Baseball history. That's like I said, just to show you how much of a phenom and how much of a prodigy he actually is. That's where he is. I believe, I'm gonna make sure I get the name right here because I'll mispronounce it. I did before. Pete Incaviglia. He has the record for the shortest amount of time it took to make an opening day roster. Just 2 position players who came out in the draft since 1965 have made an opening day roster with less experience in the minors and the majors than Wyatt Langford. It was Pete Incaviglia. If I messed it up, I apologize. He was on the 86 Rangers squad. He had 0 games before he was on the opening day roster. And John Alarud, who had the 1990 Blue Jays, had 6 games before he was on the opening day roster. So of the 18 hitters who did so in fewer than 100 games, only 4 joined clubs that came off winning seasons, and none of them won a playoff series, let alone a World Series championship. So that's how rare it is to have a phenom and a prodigy ascend as quickly as Wyatt Langford has, but then do it for a team that's coming off a World Series win. It's never happened, Patrick. We've never ever seen it.
No.
That's why people are thinking, man, last year the Rangers were ahead of schedule. This was the year that they were actually supposed to make a run based on the talent that they had been stockpiling. And now since they have Wyatt Langford on the roster now, on the opening day roster, like I say, we'll hear from Bruce Bochy here talking too. But since they have him and they also have Evan Carter, Texas is the only team with 2 top 10 prospects. Matter of fact, it gives them 2 top 10 prospects in the major. So not only this, how about that? So adding Langford to the mix not only makes Texas the only team with 2 top 10 prospects, it gives them the 2 only top 10 prospects in the majors. The only team to have 2 prospects in the majors as well. So the only team to have 2 top 10 prospects and the only team to have 2 top 10 prospects in the majors already. Talk about the future being bright.
Yeah.
Damn.
No, it is. It's going to be a fun season to see how they go. Evan Carter, we want to see what that, sophomore season, which is technically still his rookie season because of how baseball works, but to see if he can come back and does he have a sophomore slump or does he still come out and dominate as he did at the end of last season? And then Wyatt Langford, it's just there's going to be that feeling out period. You'll see them try and throw him all the breaking balls in the world to try and throw him off because that's normally what you do with young guys. But if he's able to play well for this team, they're just going to be really, really dangerous in a tough division where Seattle's really good. We know Houston's going to be good, but the Rangers don't want this to come to chance where they lost this division last year in the last 2 games of the season to the Astros. They don't want that again. They want to go ahead and walk away with this one. So I think they're going to come out guns a-blazing, trying to get a nice, healthy lead before the All-Star break.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. And Wyatt Langford, I mean, he just ripped up the Cactus and Grapefruit League. He led those leagues in 8 different offensive categories, including first in total bases, RBIs, and third in home runs with 6. So there was no way they were gonna keep this guy off the opening day roster, even though his that type of meteoric rise is really rare, as we just mentioned. All right, so let's hear from Bruce Bochy first. He did a interview with MLB Network talking about this young phenom, this young prodigy. And I think Patrick's right. I think a lot of people coming out for the Rangers opening day game, they want to get a glimpse at him. I think he's going to be the DH for them to start out. But you're going to see more and more of him. Here's Bruce Bochy talking about what a stud Langford is.
Wyatt Langford. Normally, you don't put a lot of stock into spring training numbers, but I tell you what, the spring training numbers that he has put up are worth recognizing. What makes him so special right now, perhaps hitting 5th in your order as a DH?
Yeah, and not just spring training. I have to talk about his numbers last year coming up through our system. They were amazing, and he's just a gifted athlete. And I say athlete, you talk about his hitting, but he's done a good job in left field. He runs well. He's a baseball player, and he's just a guy that is so grounded and humble. I just love watching him play. He plays the game right. He gets it. Now, I don't have him, set in a certain spot in the order right now. He could be hitting 3rd against lefties. He could be hitting 5th or 6th. I don't want all the attention on him because it's going to be all of us, and that's what it was last year. But we're lucky to have this man. And coming to spring training, I really thought that he would make this club. Those numbers don't lie. What he's been doing, it is amazing what he has accomplished. Considering he was playing for the Florida Gators a year ago, here he is in the major leagues for a team that won the World Series. So kudos to him. How he came in spring training, how he handled himself, carried himself, and how he produced. So he earned this. It's well deserved.
There goes Bruce Bochy talking about the young phenom. He actually was on a podcast with Jeff Wilson, who does the Rangers podcast. Does a really good job. If you want to follow someone who does a great job analyzing and breaking down Rangers baseball, but he had Wyatt Langford on on his podcast, and was asking him about the team and how quickly the team has accepted him and how they've really reached out and tried to make him feel at home. I thought this was an interesting story. Kind of shows you how tight knit that Rangers team is already. But here is Wyatt Langford on that Jeff Wilson podcast.
What have the guys been like in the clubhouse? You mentioned them right off the bat. Obviously, Josh Young invited you to live with them, and Nate, Nathaniel Lowe, which seems like an awful cool gesture. But at times there have been 65 other players in the clubhouse. So what's it like in there?
Yeah, I mean, first off, yeah, it was super cool that they were willing to do that for me. I was really glad to have been able to say yes whenever they invited me to do that. But yeah, the guys in the clubhouse have been great. The guy I keep talking about is Travis Jankowski. He's been super good to me. Just being around him, I've been in the outfield and stuff. He's been good. But I mean, there's like, for the most part, everyone has been very like open and willing to talk and help.
Interesting, man. Guys offering to let them come live with them. That's a close team. Pros usually don't necessarily operate that way. Those guys got a lot of money, but they're offering to help ease his transition into the pros because, this guy was ripping up college baseball like a year ago. And now he's one of the hottest names coming out in Major League Baseball. A lot of pressure, a lot of expectations. I'm glad that the vets there and some of the young guys there even are reaching out to him, trying to make him feel at home. That's a tight group, man. They're close. And I think that's part of the reason that they made that run last year and that they did gel quicker than we thought because they are a close team. I do think they showed that last year too.
Yeah, exactly. And the hitting, especially the fielding and hitting part of this team, is really, really close. And I think it is, where you can take where it's a few underdogs that have maybe not thought that they've been respected enough coming into this. I think the entire Rangers organization really felt that they were kind of looked over a bit because they're in the same division as the Astros, who were winning World Series. I think they were getting a little upset about that. No one can say that anymore about them. But if Bruce Bochy can still keep that family vibe going, then they're going to have a really good chance this season.
Yeah, and I was reading an article the other day saying the Rangers have the best middle infield in baseball between Marcus Semien, Corey Seager, best middle infield in baseball. I mean, in terms of top to bottom, their roster now, you go look at it, it's going to be one of the best rosters in Major League Baseball, especially now adding a young Wyatt Langford to the DH. Their lineup is going to be one of the most intimidating. So a lot of things going right for the Rangers, a lot of excitement for the Rangers. There you go. That's our Rangers report for the day. We'll be doing that every Monday and Thursday, but of course, now that baseball season is upon us, and we are the Ranger station, we'll be talking a lot of Rangers, period. And we'll talk some Astros as well. Don't worry, we're going to talk some Astros. We'll try to balance out things, but we're the official Rangers station here at the Horn, so got to show some love. And they're the World Series champions, so got to show them some respect, too. All right,
there we go. Wait,
next.
Let's hear this.
The Rangers Report is brought to you by Texas Truck and Trailer, your premier truck accessory dealer.
Thank you very much, Patrick. That's why he's the real MVP, keeping me on track, making sure we get some love to Texas Truck and Trailer. All right, since we ran out of time here, let's combine Rod's rant and also the Dallas Cowboys conversation. We'll do that on the other side. Dak Prescott, if he indeed is allowed to play out the last year on his deal and becomes a free agent, who will be in the Dak Prescott sweepstakes? And we'll try to play out the hypothetical of what the Cowboys are going to do if indeed Dak Prescott leaves the Cowboys. What will be the butterfly domino effect of that? All of that and more when we return right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers, coming right back on the Horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn, Rod Babers here. Let me tell you about the great city of Austin. We talk about the traffic oftentimes, or complain about it, and with good reason, because the traffic is pretty miserable. But the traffic is bad because people keep moving to Austin because it's such a great city. People keep moving here; they want to call it their home, and we're all proud to call it our home as well. And everything in Austin, I mean, it gets bigger and better. And part of the reason that those things get bigger and better in Austin is because of our friends over at Ironworkers Local 482. They construct and have built many of the iconic landmarks that make Austin such a unique city, like DKR Stadium and the Pennybacker Bridge. And as our city continues to grow and thrive, well, so does Ironworkers Local Union 482. Right now, they're building a huge project right here in Central Texas, and they need your help. They're investing in building our community, and right now they're hiring over 3,000 people to help them complete this project. They're offering competitive wages, competitive benefits, and a pension plan. They even offer training for unskilled labor through their apprenticeship program. So right now, it's a great time for you to become a member of Ironworkers Local 482 and take pride in the type of teamwork and craftsmanship that help shape the future of our great city. So maximize your potential and accept the challenge of becoming the best version of yourself by going online today to apply and inquire at ironworkers482.org. That's ironworkers482.org. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get to the rant of the day. I just want to combine our Cowboys conversation with the rant of the day because there is a lot of speculation now from the report from NFL Network. Ian Rappaport reporting yesterday that the Cowboys' Dak Prescott is expected to play out the last year of his deal and thus hit free agency in 2025. There's a mutual understanding between the Cowboys and Dak Prescott that indeed there is no pressurized negotiations going on. There are contract talks, but they are not working with any sense of urgency on either side, Dak's side or the Cowboys side. They're willing to let this thing play out, and play out, they actually mean it may end up working out where Dak's a free agent in 2025 after playing out the last year of his deal in 2024. So let's walk through this hypothetical. Let's just say that's what happens. Dak Prescott indeed hits free agency in 2025 after having a very similar year to what he's been doing the last 3 or 4 years in 2024. He's they're not making a Super Bowl. All right. So no Super Bowl here for Dak. They didn't make it to the NFC title game. They made the playoffs, but they didn't advance very far. So let's just throw that out there as hypothetical. Because if Dak makes a Super Bowl, then I think the situation changes because the Cowboys may try to keep Dak if he makes a Super Bowl, or if the Cowboys, make it to the NFC title game. I think things may change because I believe for Jerry Jones, that's the ultimate goal for him, is to advance past the division round. And that's why everybody, including Mike McCarthy as a lame duck coach on the last year of his deal, Mike Zimmer signing a 1-year deal, Micah Parsons picked up his 5th-year option, CeeDee Lamb with no deal yet, that he wants to see from everybody involved here that they can advance past the divisional round and even past the NFC title game. So if that happens, then I think there's going to be a different conversation had about Dak Prescott. But let's just say that's not the case, because that hasn't been the case. And that's what's frustrating, I believe, Jerry Jones, and why his version of all in is, all right, everybody is basically playing on a contract year, and I'm not paying anybody until y'all show me that y'all are worthy of those big bucks by helping this team advance past the divisional round. So if Dak Prescott is a free agent in 2025, who's going to be in the Dak Prescott sweepstakes, first off? That's what I want to know. Who's going to be in the sweepstakes? And I think the team at the top of the list, or at least one of the teams at the top of the list for me, is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think they're one of the teams at the top of the list because the Steelers are a team right now. They're engaged in multiple quarterback experiments between Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. There is no guarantee either one of those guys is going to work out. If they don't work out, that is a stable franchise with a stable coach that drafts really well. So they do have talent. And look at the division that they're in. They can't afford to have lackluster, mediocre, subpar play at quarterback. Not when you got a Joe Burrow in that division. Not when the reigning MVP Lamar Jackson is in that division, right? Hell, who knows what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson? But if Deshaun Watson ever awakens and becomes the Deshaun Watson that he was his last year starting with the Texans, he's going to be a top 10 quarterback. So they can't afford to have a lackluster, mediocre quarterback play. So if Justin Fields doesn't work out, Russell Wilson doesn't work out for them, I can see them making a move to go get Dak, to go get stability. And they're big on character. And Dak's almost superhuman quality is that everybody loves his football character. He's a veteran player. That is something to consider. Steelers are one of those teams that should be in the Dak Prescott sweepstakes if indeed he reaches free agency. Patrick, give me another team that you think is going to be in the Dak Prescott free agency sweepstakes if he indeed reaches free agency.
I'll throw Minnesota out as a team that has Sam Darnold right now. They are going to try and trade up in the draft. That's what everybody's assuming, to go get a quarterback. And if they do, that takes them out of it. But as of right now, if they don't get the offer they want to trade up, they don't necessarily get their quarterback where they want to get him. You have Justin Jefferson, you have Jordan Addison, you have TJ Hawkinson, you have all these weapons that are supposed to be around a quarterback. And if you don't get that quarterback and you have to wait a season and you're trying to keep those guys and keep this team going forward, Dak may be somebody that you reach out and pick up the phone to call.
That's a great point. Yeah, I like that because, they got everything in place except the quarterback right now. And if they can't move up in the draft, I like that one. I think that was good. I'll throw out another team. I think the Giants. Why are you looking at a team that they're not sure about Daniel Jones? Multiple reports have said they're essentially moving on from Daniel Jones. They're just not in a position to do it right now. And if that is the case, they're still going to play out this season with him as kind of a lame duck quarterback. And if that is the case, and they could use the incentive that Dak Prescott wants revenge on the team that may have done him dirty, depending on his perspective of things. So playing the Cowboys may appeal to Dak Prescott in a revenge scenario. So I'll throw out the Giants as a team that might be in the Dak Prescott sweepstakes. Maybe New York City is a place where Dak Prescott ends up playing the Cowboys twice a year. And by the way, Dak Prescott has owned the Giants. So they've seen him beat them a lot. So they believe in the resume and they believe in his ability.
Yeah. Okay. I'll throw out another team that's more of a wild card. That's the Carolina Panthers. Could be a wild card team.
Ooh.
They have an owner that likes to spend money, has no effort, no care in throwing away a project very quickly. He's throwing away a lot of coaches very quickly. So he may say, Bryce Young, will get more value for him if we trade him already. If we wait until third or fourth year and there's not time left on his contract and we've run him into the ground, then he's worthless. But we could probably still get a second or a third for Bryce Young because somebody's going to say, well, there's more hope on that and I can have my window open. So I'll take a Bryce Young from a bad franchise and believe I can fix that before I go out. And if I don't have the money to go sign a Dak Prescott, then I might go do that. But Carolina will have the cap room, most likely. Then you also throw in the fact that they have an owner who would probably throw the most cash at him up front, maybe the most guaranteed money up front to pay Dak Prescott to try and bring in some sort of stability at the quarterback position in Carolina. It's an interesting look. If that is available, that could be a guy that they really like out there.
That was not a team on my list, but honestly, I think you might have nailed it in terms of a team that fits all of the criteria for a team that may be in the running for a Dak Prescott, a type of player like that, because he would be frustrated with drafting young quarterbacks. He had the number one overall pick, and they screwed that up. So he'd probably want more of a proven commodity. That's Dak. He'd also, like you said, he's not afraid to spend. He's paying 3 coaches right now. I mean, he's still paying Frank Reich. He's still paying Matt Rule. So he will spend money. And those guys were paid handsomely. I mean, he paid them really, really well. So, yeah, you're right about that. I honestly, I would have disagreed with it before you started breaking it down. But because of the volatile ownership they have, he's unpredictable.
Yeah.
He might do it.
He's the wild card.
Yeah.
It's a wild card race.
Yeah. That's a great point.
And then you had another great one in New York as well.
Yeah, I think the Jets are a team that also will be in the running, or should be. We don't know what's going to happen with the Aaron Rodgers situation or experiment. If it works out, great, but he's not going to play for a long time. I think this year might be his last year. And Zach Wilson, they've agreed, I believe, mutual understanding to let him seek a trade. But I don't think anybody is interested in trading for Zach Wilson. So they're going to need a quarterback, and Dak could be that guy. It's New York City. You got to compete in that market, and you want to make sure that you got something you can sell and a proven commodity, and that's why they brought in Aaron Rodgers. Hadn't worked out. Dak Prescott could be that option for the Jets. So I'll throw them out there too. That's another team that I think would be in the Dak Prescott sweepstakes.
Yeah, and then Vegas is a team. We can put Vegas in there because they're
Vegas
a team that if they don't get their quarterback, they could be looking for something. It's a type of splash. It feels right. Remember, they have Devontae Adams still on this roster, so they still have a really good wide receiver on this team. But it feels like the right kind of splash for them, which is it's a lot of money, but it's not necessarily like if you're not getting a marquee name, but you are, which is kind of where the Raiders lie in their ability to sign free agents, that they may be able to get them to go in there and be the face of the franchise for a while in LA. They could be looking for a guy like that. And just anything, if Aiden O'Connell is their answer at quarterback this year, then they could be very desperate next season.
Yeah, and Vegas, the Raiders notoriously, even before they went to Vegas, they don't draft a lot of quarterbacks. They're kind of like the Cowboys in that respect. They get their quarterbacks via free agent acquisitions. They've gotten them in other kind of unconventional ways, but they don't draft a lot of QBs. So that actually fits too. I mean, I don't know what Matt Stafford's situation is. He played well this year, but I wonder if the Rams are looking at a solution, a possible, future solution at quarterback if Matt Stafford is coming close to retirement too, but it may not be quick enough to be in the Dak Prescott sweepstakes, which is obviously going to be coming up in 2025. All right, so good conversation about Dak Prescott's possible locations, or at least the possible teams that could be interested in Dak Prescott if he does hit free agency. But let's walk it down that path even more. Let's go from the Cowboys' perspective. If indeed the Cowboys are going to let Dak Prescott walk, that means they're also blowing everything up, right? Mike McCarthy's probably gone. Mike Zimmer's gone. Everybody's gone. Who knows? You might want to hire Mike Zimmer as a head coach. But my point is, you're going to start everything over. And if you're going to rebuild in that manner, you honestly, it's because it's crazy, man. So thinking about this CeeDee Lamb contract, CeeDee Lamb is right now the only Cowboy who hasn't really been revealed what his status is contract negotiation wise. We know Micah, who's due for an extension, he's getting the 5th-year option. That's been applied. Now we learned from Ian Rappaport, Dak Prescott's contract extensions, well, they're not going that great. He may end up playing on the last year of his deal. Crickets, though, on the CeeDee Lamb contract extension. Yeah. So I'm thinking that actually means that CeeDee Lamb might not be getting a contract extension either. And then it got me thinking about the Cowboys and how if they actually blow this whole damn thing up, how many teams are going to be interested in acquiring not only Dak Prescott, he'll be a free agent, but what about a Micah Parsons, CeeDee Lamb? Because there's no point in keeping and paying top dollar for an all-pro receiver in his prime like CeeDee Lamb if you don't have the quarterback. That's just right now that's malfeasance, right? That's malpractice. That doesn't make any sense. You go look at the Micah Parsons thing. If you're going to pay Micah Parsons like the greatest salary for a defensive player in history of the NFL, why would you do that in a year where you're going to be rebuilding? That doesn't make a lot of sense either. So if the Cowboys are indeed going to rebuild, they actually may need CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons as trade pieces to acquire the draft capital to rebuild the franchise, because you would get multiple first-round picks for both. You probably end up with both of those guys getting 4 first-round picks between both of them, and maybe 2 or 3 second-round picks, extra second-round picks between both of them. And I'm thinking for the Cowboys, who do draft well, I'll give them credit for that. It's a hell of a risk, because you got to hit when you hire the coach. You got to hit on the quarterback draft pick you make, whoever that's going to be. And you better hit on those other first-round picks that you are rebuilding with. But to me, Patrick, I think that's the only way for the Cowboys to move forward, if indeed they let Dak walk and then they fire Mike McCarthy, because I don't even know if CeeDee Lamb's going to want to sign with them if they end up in quarterback hell or quarterback purgatory. Yeah. And then if does Micah want to be a part of a team that's really not going to compete during his prime for a championship? I don't know if Micah has that kind of mindset. These may be guys that don't even want to be a part of a rebuild, and thus trade them, get draft capital. That's how you rebuild. It's weird to think that way, but I believe that's maybe the only path forward if indeed it goes worst case scenario, Dak ends up going to free agency.
If you go out, you underperform again this year, you look at what your dead cap number is going the next 2 seasons, you understand how tied your hands are going to be, and you look and you say, well, we can call up Dan Quinn. I bet we can get 2 firsts for Micah Parsons. I bet Dan Quinn will let us have him in the Commanders. That's his guy.
Doubt.
And if Micah Parsons says, I don't like playing this Mike Zimmer off defense, I don't like playing where they want me to be a linebacker, I don't want to do any of that. I want to go where the guy tells me I'm the greatest of all time. I want to go play in that defense, and I don't want to play there. So he's maybe questioning re-signing there. I think he likes being part of America's team. I think that's a big selling point for him. But, I don't – but he could ask for that off. You could see CeeDee Lamb. And, if you don't re-sign Dak, so I'll stay, but I want to be the highest paid wide receiver in football. And I don't see the Cowboys wanting to do that deal. So if you say, well, we're not going to sign him there, we feel we can draft other guys. We drafted you. We can draft somebody else. Then trade him off and try and get some value for him as well. You definitely could. Then but you could also see them try and rebuild the entire offense to keep the defense, keep Micah Parsons. You're already paying Trayvon Diggs.
That's true.
So do you keep him? Do you go with that? Do you re-sign Deron Bland and invest in your defense while you rebuild that offense through the draft? That could be a path for them as well. But you basically have to give up one side of the ball. So either you're giving up Micah Parsons and possibly Trayvon Diggs and say we're rehauling that defense completely, or you say we're letting Dak go, we're letting CD go, we're going to rehaul the offense. We got to rehaul the offensive line anyway because it's starting to get older and beat up. And the Cavs facing Tyron Smith and Biotish. So we got to revamp everything on that offense. But let's keep Micah. Let's keep Trayvon. Let's re-sign Deron Bland and build what we feel is going to be a better defense, and then draft an offense and try and build through the salary cap that way.
No, you could. Yeah. You could go with one phase and just rebuild one phase. Like I said, you better hit on the head coach and you better hit on quarterback. You don't hit on those two, none of this matters. So the Cowboys are a really good drafting team. They're one of the best drafting teams in the NFL. But if they go this route, there's no margin for error. You got to nail that head coach hire, and you got to nail those draft picks if indeed you're going the route that Patrick and I are hypothesizing about. But that is, like I said, I really don't see any other way for them to rebuild if they blow it up. They just don't have any other route other than trading. I guess you could just go find, maybe Trey Lance is the missing piece here. Maybe they believe he is that good and he's going to have his, he's going to have kind of his resuscitated career. He's going to be revitalized with these Cowboys like Baker Mayfield has been and Geno Smith has been, and Jared Goff has been. If that is the case, then they don't need to go the extreme route. Excuse me. They can just go the route of let's build it around Trey Lance instead of building it around Dak. And they can keep everything they got going. Yeah. They'll just have a cheaper quarterback to do so if the Trey Lance experiment is going to work for them. Now, that also is a big roll of the dice.
And then it's also, you're going to have to push off a lot of contracts next year because if you let Dak go, you're still paying him $40 to $50 million next season. You still have Michael Gallup dead cap for next season too. You're going to have a lot of dead cap hitching next year as well. So you say, even if we're not paying the quarterback, it's like we're paying a quarterback, even if it is Trey Lance. And Trey Lance is not under contract, so you have to give him a deal that if you believe he's the guy, you have to go give him, and hopefully he'd sign for a 1 or 2 year deal for 10 a year or something, or 15 a year. You'd hope that, but he could walk away too, and that plan could blow up in your face. So
Yeah. Oh no, it could blow up in their face. Like I said, they better make sure they have a plan and then have a plan B, C, D, E, G. All types of contingency plans in case this thing falls different than they expect. All right, good conversation there. Let's get to the break here. We're gonna come back, wrap it up, put it in the oven, and let you know what we're gonna do coming up next week because we're off on Friday. But before we do all that, we'll play Who Said That. Coming back right here on the Home. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time for our last segment of the show. It is a new theme Thursday. New theme for today has to do with Major League Baseball. All the songs are dedicated to baseball in some way, form, or fashion because it is opening day, at least nationally. It is opening day, and the Rangers will be playing the Cubs, and there'll be that game will be broadcast right here on the Horn. So don't forget about that. But thanks to my man Patrick for all the musically themed days of the week. We appreciate all of his hard work.
I did cheat. I did cheat a little bit on this song.
Yeah, because how is this baseball related?
The band's called The Outfield.
Well done. You had to get creative.
It was.
You had to stretch
I was trying to find something there at the end.
Yeah, man. Hey, you know what? That's creative. That you know what? I'll allow it. There you go.
I'll allow it.
It makes sense. There you go. I like that because you said what a challenge it was when you first came up with this theme to find songs that are baseball related,
and not someone opining for baseball. It's love like there's like Kenny Rogers songs, Bob Dylan's. Like, there's all these songs, but they're just slow and
ballads, like
they're really just like how great is baseball, and I'm like that's not good intro music.
Yeah, that's weird. I'm trying to think of these baseball ballads. I guess I haven't heard many of them, and why would I? I mean, that's still weird. Yeah, it's still very strange. I don't know why people are singing baseball like it's some long lost love. But I guess for them, maybe it is. They're singing to baseball like that. But shout out to my man Patrick, man, always working hard for us, especially for those musically themed days of the week. The man's working hard. All right, time for a Who Said That before we get out of here. That's when we play audio clips and you play at home with us. And based off the audio that you hear, see if you can determine from the sports world usually who said that.
Right, and the field position. Yeah, oh yeah, okay, you're right. It's like, so yeah, that building that, kind of offensive line. That's exciting. Can't wait to do that. April 2nd. Let's get it started. Let's go. So do you feel ready to roll?
All right, who said that? That was Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh, he's ready to roll. He's excited. They actually said that Jim Harbaugh has attempted, that he actually has attempted to live out of basically place an RV by the facilities and live out of an RV. Like that's something that he's trying to get approval for. Jim Harbaugh is wild, man. Jim Harbaugh is a wild man. There's no doubt about it. So yeah, that is Jim Harbaugh for our Who Said That. Thanks to my man Patrick for all the hard work behind the scenes. Thank all you guys out there for listening. We'll be off tomorrow for a Good Friday. And we'll be back on Monday, of course, same time, same channel. So everybody, please enjoy the Easter weekend. Enjoy each other. Remember, the revolution will not be televised. We'll be talking about it right here on the Rodcast. We love you guys. We mean that. Take care of yourselves, but more importantly, take care of each other. Thanks to my man Patrick Davis, and thanks to you guys out there. Until next time, hook 'em.